Welcome to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
The 1-1 pitch, and Pajes puts a charge into one. Center field and deep. Bader back. It is gone! There it is for Andy Pajes, his first Major League home run.
Swing a little bloop off the end of the bat to left field. It's dropping fast. It's going to drop. Yes, it is. Down that line. Both runners are going to score. Abreu is in. Wong is in. And Reese McGuire drops a little 2-out RBI. Down that left field line off the end of the bat.
He'll back in again to our right. Back behind the net, X-Flat. He's going to toss it off a stanchion. Bounces to Tkachuk at center. Tkachuk looks toward the empty net. He scores! Matthew Tkachuk on the empty net. It's 3-1 Panthers with 2:05 to play here in the third. Van Riemsdyk on the pitch. Out to the side of the net. And Lafayette tried to center. Picked off. Outlet and Kreider on the breakaway. Scores! On the backhand. And he may have just put away game one. Harden deep on left side. Steps into a three. Bullseye! James Harden with a big-time shot out of the break. And the Clippers bump the lead up to 17. 105-88. It's going to be the final shot here. And the Bucks will take game one of round one against the Pacers.
Good morning. Welcome into Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. We're live on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube as well. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla. We're here on the Pillar Exterior stage. DB, what's going on, man?
What's up? How are things?
It's a Monday.
Yeah, that's okay. I'm not one of those. I'm probably more apt to talk to you on a Monday morning than I am a Sunday night. You know what I mean? Yeah. No, Mondays
what's going on Sunday nights?
I don't know. It's just my time. Yeah. Mondays they're okay. I never really bought into the.
I mind them less now than I used to.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like, they're fine.
I like my job now, so that helps.
Yeah, wasn't that something?
That helps a lot.
Yeah, somebody. So like the third person, I must have been awful, but so like the third person told me that I just seemed so happy, and it was Saturday. Who was that? It was in the morning. Fudge. I can't remember. Yeah. I caught a total break too, so I was in a little bit better mood this weekend. I only have one. Just think about this. I only have one scheduling conflict with high school football and Nebraska broadcast.
Oh, that's nice.
It's unreal.
That's a good one.
Unbelievable.
You guys heading out of town for high school and it kind of messes up a little bit?
No, so sometimes, Friday or away games.
You got fly out earlier.
Yeah. Because I leave with the team. So our last 2 weeks, I should have known this, but they're Thursday night games.
Yeah. So
leaving on Fridays, no problemo.
Mm-hmm.
I have the one, and it's a big one. I think it's week 5 or 4 or 5 at Central. And we're at Purdue. So I have to figure that one out, but it's okay because it's homecoming.
Mm-hmm.
And Keith Mann helped me with this Saturday. Bless his heart. He said, there's this thing I have to remember. I think when it's homecoming games from a television broadcast standpoint, you'll know by May. They'll tell you your time.
Oh, that's nice.
I said, let's go.
You get a little heads up on that.
Yeah. So
if it's a late game, you can get out there on your
I
own.
can figure it out.
Yeah. That is a good break.
Yeah. How about that little chicken nugget though? That's a nice little rule.
That's a guy that knows.
Knows what his job.
Knows about his job. I like that.
Yeah. And I was asking him about like Indianapolis versus because the airport we fly into is not commercial.
Yeah.
So
you got to figure out.
But it's only like 3 miles from.
Oh, that's nice.
Ross-Ade.
So you got to figure out if you need to like fly into Indianapolis.
Yep. But I'm telling you, it's a beautiful thing.
You can make it work.
One game.
That's not bad at all.
Fudge, man. I was doing circles. Sat out on my porch a little bit. I ate 2 steaks by myself Saturday.
Yeah. What kind of steaks are we doing?
So I still have parts of the cow. Even though we're getting down to the nitty gritty, they were strips.
Mm-hmm.
Follow my guy Meat Dad on TikTok. Let's go.
Oh, good.
He's the greatest. He's like the greatest TikTok follow ever.
He's one of the most annoying people I've ever heard.
Oh my God. How come you don't like any of my guys? Is it their delivery?
Yes, 100%. That's all it is. I'm sure the content's great.
Wow, that hurts my feelings.
I mean,
what's wrong with him? Is because he says let's go? He cusses sometimes too much.
well, you know me, the cussing really bothers me.
Yeah, which was funny because the minute you put the headsets down Friday, like you went all in, I was like, what just happened?
I felt some kind of way.
You were fine 2 seconds ago.
Well, it's called being a professional, DB.
You seem very hurt right now.
Got to get through the show sometimes.
No, so I just did. I just tried a different method. It's not novel.
Yeah.
You know, I had Coles on one side, Cool on the other. And I took him to like 120 on the Cool side, but I had the skillet going on the other last second. So I just used some tallow and butter and then flipped the stick, just seared them at the end.
Mm-hmm.
They were... I found myself having a little bit less control over the temp.
Mm.
I mean, they ended up getting to when I cut into them, they were 136.
Yeah.
I'm a
It's a little warm.
I'm a 132 guy.
Yeah.
Probably.
You gotta get real specific on those.
Oh,
otherwise it gets away from you.
It absolutely matters.
It really does, especially after you let it like rest a little bit.
Yeah.
And it keeps cooking.
Oh yeah.
You gotta be careful there.
You know, and I had to. It takes a while to figure out how many degrees
It's gonna
resting meat's gonna actually rise.
Yep.
So, and then yesterday was Operation. I sat outside a good chunk of the day.
It was pretty nice, even though it wasn't super warm. It was sunny.
So that's kind of my.
Like it was pretty nice yesterday.
I get it for the heliotropes, right? You want some sun and heat, but for me, I could take cool and sunny and 65. I could take that all year.
Yeah, that's not bad.
And I know I'm a balanced guy, but if it's never going to get too hot in the summer, I don't need it to rain in the spring and snow in the winter either.
So really, you're like a San Diego guy.
Well, isn't San Diego warm?
I mean, it gets a little warmer in the summer, but it pretty. Maybe San Francisco is a little better, a little cooler up there.
Yeah, I should ask my sister. She's been there for seems like 70 years.
I feel like, but in San Francisco, it's always between 50 and 70.
Yeah, coincidentally, that's where your guy meet dad is.
In San Francisco.
Why is he annoying? Because he says, "Let's go."
Yeah, it's just the delivery bothers me. I don't know.
He's lost like 50 pounds.
I mean, good for him. That's good. He's probably on that carnivore diet.
Yeah, he's
carnivore, paleo, one of them. I don't know. Low carb.
Yeah.
Who knows?
He's
Atkins. What else do we have? What is it?
You say keto?
No, keto. That's the one I was looking for. Keto.
And there's one more. Well, there's the popular vegan.
Well, he's not a vegan.
No, but a lot of people do that one.
You go pescatarian.
Is that fish?
Yeah, just seafood.
Yeah.
This is what my wife is, but she's allergic to beef.
Oh, I'd be traumatized.
So she got.
At what point did she figure that out?
Well, it didn't happen until later in life. So there's this.
Yeah, I'd be. It'd be different if I never could have it, and then I just had to. Like I would know.
No, because she
was knowing and then having to stop.
Yeah, so she used to eat like rare steaks. Like she liked beef a lot. She got bit by a tick. Have you heard about this? There's a tick that carries a disease. It's called alpha gal. That
Mikey Gal?
Alpha gal.
Oh, my bad.
Where they bite you. I don't even know who Mikey Gal is.
It would be a quarterback in the Metro.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah,
that name sounds familiar.
Both-handed.
Oh, yeah, that's right. That's right.
Ambidextrous. I'm sorry.
It's the same idea.
Amphibious.
That's a different thing. That's more like pescatarian.
Well, the crocodile in Spider-Man could use both hands. Remember him?
Doc Ock?
Dr. Connors?
Oh, Dr. Connors. Doc is a different guy.
Well, he had 8 hands he could use.
Could he use all of them, though?
I think so.
So what is it? What is it? Ambidextrous if it's 8 instead of 2?
I barely graduated. I have no idea.
You're an educator. Come on, man.
Not anymore.
He is one of the coolest bad guys, though.
Dr. Connors or Doc Ock?
Doc Ock.
They didn't do a good job with any of those in the movies.
You felt like they made him a little too weak?
Yeah, too cheesy.
Oh, I don't know. I think that guy's a good actor.
No, it's not that the guys aren't good actors. I just didn't think they did a good job with them in the movies. That's the difference, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Although I did like the Defoe guy as...
Well, no, they did a good job with
Hobgoblin.
With Willem.
Yeah. I watched I watched John Wick. John Wick, much like The Equalizer, is always going to get some viewing time, and The Gladiator when it's on one of the 164
You've been trying to get me to watch
times.
John Wick for like 4 years.
So I got into it late, but I liked it.
Didn't you watch like all 3 of them in one night?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Like I totally do that too. Like I get to stuff late. My sister was here the other day or last week to celebrate my mom's birthday, and she knows everything known to man that's been on television, like a series and stuff like that. And we got into this conversation about TV, and she just looked at me like, "Who are you?" Because there are either so many things I haven't seen or that I just started watching, and she's like, "Oh my gosh."
I just have to assume that my wife hasn't seen movies. Like she just doesn't. Like there's a handful of stuff she's seen. But
do you guys watch TV together?
Sometimes, yeah. So we'll watch TV. We don't watch a ton of movies.
Does she watch sports?
Not really, no.
Yeah.
Which I don't mind. It's fine.
That's your time?
Yeah, well, and I don't know. My ex-wife watched a lot of sports, and I don't know, it wasn't as cool as people make it out to be. But maybe that was her situation, not like that.
Not traumatized at all.
Maybe it wasn't like a sport.
At what point yesterday were you annoyed with me and Shane? Because I didn't mean to have you on that hockey text.
It was fine.
I mean, that was probably like 7 or 8 in a row, and I bet you're like, okay, cool.
Well, I was driving, and because I went down to Lincoln last night for I was doing a podcast of one of our podcasters on the network. And so it was Generation Red. And so I'm driving down to Lincoln. So you guys are just like popping off while I'm driving. And so I've got the little screen. I like, your text pops up. So I hit the button and Siri reads it to me. And it's some hockey nonsense. I'm like, okay. And like 30 seconds later, another one pops up, hit the screen. Because I have to keep listening to them in case you guys
actually say something important
about the show or whatever. And
it's never nonsense when it's hockey.
Yeah, tell them again, Shane.
I didn't say it was nonsense.
Have you seen a lady on TikTok that says "say the quiet part out loud" and then it goes to somebody saying something?
No, she goes say the weird thing.
Yes. Yeah, you have seen her say the weird thing out loud.
Yeah, she's got the like thick Southern accent.
Yeah.
She goes say the weird thing. Yeah.
I still can't believe you don't like my cooking, guys. I get why you don't like Southern vibes.
Yeah.
He's annoying.
He's super annoying.
Oh, my Lord.
It's actually not less annoying when people do impressions of him. I don't know if you know that.
Absolute free boovery. Let's go, baby. I'm going down with them chicken thighs.
I don't think I'm enjoying this as much as you are. Coming up on the show today, we've got
Uncle Timmy Crabapple over here.
What? I'm always in a good mood. I don't know what you're talking about.
Uncle Crabapple.
I might be the cheeriest person you know.
Oh yeah. Regular ball of joy.
I'm like Chris Kringle over here. I'm always jolly, giving people, putting people in.
I think he's
mood.
pretty made up. I'm not going out on a limber.
So is my enthusiasm most days. So.
Wow. Good Monday. Is there some holiday you could be celebrating today and get happy about?
What do you mean?
I don't know. Like,
is that like an Indian thing or a made-up holiday thing?
I haven't gone Indian yet. No, like a made-up holiday thing. So
the
weekend was 420. What Coatney would know. Today's National what day?
Let's say national holiday calendar.
Is there not any of that?
I don't know. We're gonna see.
I think it's Earth Day's coming up today or tomorrow.
That's stupid. Oh no, that was yesterday.
I don't even know what that is, but
I don't even recognize.
I'm sure I could look.
Today's Earth Day.
I'm sure I could look it up.
It's Earth Day today.
I don't even recognize what we're
Is there a national holiday? Where is
it's Earth Day?
No, I don't want that one. I don't even know what that is.
Well, it's a day where we celebrate the Earth, DB.
Coatney will tell me what the national day is today. Today is it's National Jelly Bean Day.
Ooh,
Does that make you happy?
I do like jelly beans.
Good for you. Then be happy. Don't worry. Bobby
Tony made that up. I don't know where he's coming from.
That's a Bobby.
He did make that up. Did Matt say Matt made that up? Matt said Coatney made that up. Listen real close.
Tony made that up. I don't know where he's coming from.
See, Coatney, did you hear it?
I heard Tony.
Oh. Yeah, National Jelly Beans Day.
Apparently, it's also National Oklahoma Day, which doesn't do much for me.
No, wait a minute. What?
There's like a million.
Soft.
There's a million of these.
No, let's just go with jelly beans. Jelly beans should make you happy.
Why?
I don't know. Fruity and flavorful. No,
it's fine.
Oh, are you a connoisseur of jelly beans?
I like a good jelly bean.
I used to be. I haven't had them in years.
I'm not mad about the jelly beans. Yeah, I don't often partake.
There's a lot of different ones now. Easter, I was feeling a little overwhelmed.
They made them. They're a lot better than they used to be.
Really?
Yeah, they get after them now.
Is Jelly Belly still the gold standard?
Jelly Belly's good. The Starburst makes really good jelly beans. Or at least they used to.
Starburst is kind of low key underappreciated.
They know what they're
it's
doing.
An overrated candy, but they've morphed into the.
Yeah, they're a little versatile.
They gotten away from the. Is it taffy?
I don't know that it might technically.
What
be
are the
a taffy.
squares?
It might technically be a taffy.
Soft chews.
It's probably the closest to a taffy of anything else. I've never really thought about it. What is a Starburst?
Yeah, I don't know. They're not.
It is very taffy-like.
They're not as good as High Chews, so I'm out.
Yeah,
they're overrated. It just takes too long to get the wrapper off to get to basically nothing.
And then you're just like chewing a lot.
And so done.
I'd rather just get
gum. So we got Jelly Bellies and we have
the
Starburst and
what? I don't know what the other ones are. We're gonna look up. We're gonna look up all the jelly bean flavors.
Jolly Rancher has jelly beans.
Oh yeah, those are.
Do you know why I remember that?
Why is that?
Because they actually have green apple. And it's legit. So anyway, find something to be happy about.
I'm happy every day.
Is today National McCafe Day?
No, it's National Jelly Bean Day, as we heard. It also appears to have been Vladimir Lenin's birthday, so I don't know if that does.
Who's he?
For you. You know who Vladimir Lenin is?
Vladimir Lenin?
Yeah.
Reincarnation of John?
Russian Revolution.
Oh, by the way.
Yeah.
100% verified what you told me about those particular gas stations.
Yeah, I know.
Yep. So needed some ice yesterday.
Yeah.
Thought I was talking to the guy on Equalizer. I was like, whoa. Just give me the key. I'll get it myself.
It's all good, man. It's all good. I don't need it.
No. Yeah. I wanted to text you and I didn't. I'm like, okay, I believe you now.
Yeah. Yeah.
I totally believe you.
And we're not even going to say who we're talking about. And I don't care if it's annoying to the listener because I don't want none of that smoke.
Yeah, it's like
all good here.
This is what I wanted to say.
I was like, wow.
Done some bad things in my life, Nikolai. Some things I'm not proud of.
Pay that man.
I was like, whoa.
Holy cow. Like, what's going on?
Is that Tony?
No, that was
Tony's having a morning.
Yeah, 100%.
How you think those defensive guys felt after the fictional stuff we got from
after the fictional?
I'm not gonna say it was fictional. Who am I? Who am I to say it was fictional?
I don't know. Who are you to say it's fictional?
The great ones do. They're not satisfied.
Exactly. Apparently the offense was fantastic on Saturday.
Explosive, dominant,
big plays.
Dominant is a word that we heard used by one Coach Rule. Dominant offensive performance, which is, it's good to dominate.
1, 2, 3, dominate.
You're not sure you'd put it in those terms?
What do I know?
It means somebody's got to step up.
What do you know?
Who am I? Let the Lord alone the earth. You know? Would care to know my name.
I don't even recognize
would
what
care
we're doing
to
here.
feel my hurt.
You want me to set up the show or you can keep singing?
That's tough. I'd like to actually keep singing.
All right, you sing. I'm going to set up the show.
I feel like you might not be able to concentrate. I'm not very good. If I could get you in the right, what's the thing that I want to do where he could talk along? If I could get the right, is it rhythm?
A cadence?
Melody?
Come on, let's go.
If I could do whatever that is right, maybe you could sing it. Everybody's got a diss track out. Mate, do you want to do it in a diss form?
Yeah, my diss tracks are usually spoken word.
Yeah, I don't know what's wrong with my people, but we are not very happy with one another.
What do you mean, my people?
Singers.
Okay. Singer-songwriters?
Yeah.
Performers? Sam McKewon on the show at 8 o'clock. I don't know if Jay Foreman's a singer, but he's on at 9.
I bet Jay would come up with a nice diss track.
And then Steve.
Jay will know what I'm talking about.
Steve, what, your people?
Singers.
Oh, gotcha. Stephen Muehlhausen at 9:45 talk about a great boxing weekend with that Haney Garcia fight. We will get to all of those.
I wish I would have followed my own advice.
What's that?
Oh, the whole thing seems. I said this the Friday night on social media. I wasn't going back and forth with a guy, but I was talking to a guy that loves boxing. Just came out with the documentary, Curtis Schoon. As you guys realize, Devin Haney was he was minus 900. Get that? Minus 900.
That's a big number.
Huge.
That's a huge number.
But
And then
he
it came
late.
late.
But he was plus 105.
Yeah.
For a disqualification, a TKO, a KO stoppage. So let me get this straight. I got to pay out of the wazoo just to take the guy to win.
Yeah.
But you're going to give me plus money on those stoppages? No way.
Yeah, that doesn't make a lot of sense.
No way.
And
apparently a lot more people hate Devin Haney than I thought. Well, they hate Bill, but
so that spread came way down late Saturday.
Yeah, I didn't know.
So it was minus 900 Friday night.
Are you sure this wasn't in boxing? Because I think it closed it in the 8s.
I was reading an article that it closed at like minus 540.
Did it really?
So it might have been after the other fight started, but I think right before their fight, there was a ton of late money on Garcia. Now it's still minus 540. It's still a pretty hefty favorite,
especially with guys that are that good.
Yeah.
But Garcia had given. Do you remember the story? Like Garcia just a month and a half ago
he was acting a little crazy.
Was kidnapped, had no access to his phone, allegedly.
Yeah.
Then he went on about Epstein and islands and did he? And I was and people
having a weird moment there.
Like a couple of weeks.
Yeah. Didn't seem like he was necessarily super locked in for this fight.
Allegedly had a beer every day. Had one at the weigh-in.
Yeah.
Maybe it was one of those like you give the kids. It looks like it's in the beer bottle, but it's really root beer. What?
It's like one of those like IBC.
Like ginger beer. Yeah, sometimes ginger beer looks like it's a regular beer.
One of those like little IBC root beer bottles.
Yeah.
We used to like to drink those when we were kids because it looked like a beer bottle. It's just a root beer. But I don't know. I think a lot of the line was the nonsense and not actually about the fighters.
His post-fight social media game is out of control.
Yeah, I didn't look at that at all.
Oh, you talk about a rabbit hole. I mean, you
it down.
Yeah, that's the equivalent. What's him winning that fight is basically the equivalent to giving unlimited ammo to a marksman. He's just getting his shots off over and over and over again.
Yeah, that's so we'll get to that with Stephen Muehlhausen at 9:45. But yeah, super interesting the way that fight was viewed versus how it went.
Yeah,
even like in the first minute when where it seemed pretty clear that Garcia was going to give Haney everything he could handle. I'm seeing people on boxing Twitter being like, well, I think somebody said, oh, well, even Tyson had a good first minute against Lennox Lewis and stuff like that.
And since Douglas's count, there's been a few other bad officiating moments in boxing. I thought, and I'm not even that guy, so I didn't want to go all in like real fight, but I was like, I can't remember who I was talking to on social media during the fight, but I said, I don't even think these rounds are being scored correctly. Like real time, it was very obvious that something was not right.
Well, and it seemed odd. Excuse me.
And he's one of the best referees in boxing.
It seemed odd that for seemingly how dominant Garcia was, still ended up being a majority decision.
Just go back and watch the 7th round. He could have easily. I think Haney fell down 3 times. He didn't score any of them knockdowns.
Yeah, that's not.
He could barely keep his feet.
Not normal. That's not normal. Coming up next, we will get into a little bit of Husker football. Dion was really stupid again. Probably going to talk about that. That's DB. I'm
Here we go.
It's Hurrdat Sports Radio.
We will be back. 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 You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
I prefer to have it go because, again, I think one of the biggest things that you have to see is how quarterbacks handle frustration. You know, so like for instance, at Baylor, Charlie Brewer was a starter my first year after that game 4, and the next year I rotated him with a transfer quarterback. And I mean, it was the greatest quarterback parents ever. Like, never called me, never questioned me, never. And in the end, then in the end, he kind of was clear he was the starter. He became the starter the rest of the year. That took us to a bowl game, was a bowl game MVP. The next year, takes us to the Sugar Bowl, takes us to the Big 12 championship. If a quarterback never has a bad day, or he has simulated bad days, so he might have a bad day at practice, but if they know they're the starter, like, I want them to have to fight for it and earn it, And so I heard Eric Spoelstra. There's a thing in he was talking to guys in the locker room again in the playoffs. He's like, how much he values, things that you can't buy and things that you have to earn. And I just like that concept. So I want the quarterbacks to feel like they have the race, and all of a sudden I want the other guy to come along and try to challenge him. I think it'll elevate all of us. And then when we know, we know.
Can we start fading the music? Thank you. It's loud in here,
Why is it so loud over
Hey,
there? I don't know. I had that.
I'm gonna keep working on him. And if he doesn't kill me first, then we'll get through this.
You're gonna have to come through.
But I'm gonna keep working on him.
What I do?
You're gonna have to come through this wall to kill me.
By the time we get to I don't know, Foreman, you'll probably be in a better mood.
I'm in a great mood.
Hey man, are you gonna fade the music or what, Shane? So you can start talking.
Nobody
has 15 extra seconds to wait to bring us back to the Pillar Exterior stage in studios. Okay.
I got all the time in the world.
Well, apparently not.
All the time.
You want me to redo that?
No.
Is this better?
No. So it's funny he brought that up because do you remember when I used that example and you conveniently said, so was that a hint? Don't call him about your kid. Remember I told you he told me the story about Brewer's parents being the coolest ever?
Yeah.
Because they never bothered him, even though it was a tumultuous situation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, there's a couple things in there that I really appreciate. The first, the Eric Spoelstra quote about valuing things you can't buy and things you have to earn.
Yeah, him mic'd up is sensational.
Spoelstra? Yeah. He is, so I know a lot of people and the shines come off of Pop a little bit because the Spurs have struggled the last few years. But the conversation was always between Spoelstra and Pop, basically as the best coaches in the league.
I thought Pop shine dissipated because of his political takes, and he wasn't winning. People know that some coaches don't win because even Spoelstra's had bad years, but he didn't get the vitriol that Pop did because I think
Pop's pretty outspoken.
People were waiting to pounce on Pop.
Probably, and that's fair. But I'll take Pop over just about everybody.
Yeah,
as a coach, I just will. I think the 2014 Spurs might be, especially without a outstanding player on that team, because that was pre-super good Kawhi. It was post-super good Tim Duncan. Might be the most beautiful basketball I've ever seen played in my life. The way they dismantled that Miami Heat team was unbelievable. And they were doing it with Boris Diaw and Danny Green and an old Tim Duncan and a young Kawhi Leonard. That it's one of them. Just go watch 2014 Spurs highlights if you like basketball.
It's unbelievable.
It's the best stuff in the world.
Yeah.
It's so good. I can't even I will never get over how pretty of basketball that was.
That doesn't strike me that he's a SPO guy.
Who?
Coach Rule.
Not a SPO guy?
That it doesn't surprise me.
Oh, I thought you said didn't strike you that he's a SPO guy. And I was like, that's weird. You just quoted him. I don't really know what we're doing here. What's that face for?
Being patient.
Am I testing you this morning?
Being patient.
Am I like one of your kids testing the patience this morning?
Nah, they're all right. Hey, everybody made it home from prom in one piece. So
is it prom this weekend?
Man, listen. Yeah.
Okay. I was like, I'm listening.
Yeah.
You can't just say, man, listen.
I'm not going to get into it because we were talking Rule snippets.
Was your guy all suited and booted, ready to go?
Yeah, he looked good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gotta rock the tux.
Yeah. He went with he ordered 2. He went with a red blazer.
Okay.
Black button up. He changed his hair.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's got a friend that can braid hair.
Oh, nice. That's a nice little friend to have.
Yes, she is.
It's a good resource.
Yeah. Yeah. Hope it lasts.
It saves you a little money.
That's what I was going to say.
That's fine.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
That's what I was saying.
Yeah. Appreciate you.
Don't look it out.
Yep. Good looking out. So did he sound like, I worried a little bit, and worry is probably a bad word, but I'm like, kind of sounds like he's drumming up competition. Is there really competition? Does he want competition? He wants competition.
He wants it for sure.
But the way that he described it in just that clip, like it's content, it was like, oh, is there or is there not?
I also think he was kind of setting us up for like who takes the first snap might not take the last snap.
You think?
Yeah. I mean, the story they told about Brewer, right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Hey, he was starter from game 4 and then sophomore year.
Remember, I had to come back to PJ to
Washington Walker.
Yeah. Walker. I almost said Tucker.
Always want to see PJ Washington because
he started yesterday. I want to thank PJ Tucker because he had the most.
PJ Walker.
It's one of those Patrick Johns.
PJs.
Yeah.
No,
Pierre Josephs.
I always like it when it's
Paul James
more unusual than like JD Martinez is Julio Daniel. So
is he back yet?
I don't think so. He doesn't play for me anymore, so I don't care.
Yeah, I do think JD's coming back. Hey, listen,
I love JD Martinez.
I don't even know if the Dodgers were gonna. Hey, he contributed for the Dodgers too. I was worried they weren't gonna win another game.
Yeah, well, they probably are going to. There's a lot left.
Yeah,
I mean, even the White Sox are probably going to win another game. Probably. I wouldn't bet a lot of money on that. It doesn't seem like 10 and 152 is in the cards.
No,
anybody.
not so much.
Probably not.
It'd be atrocious.
That'd be pretty bad. It'd be hard to do.
No, Orioles, they recovered, so maybe
bounce back a little bit.
Maybe the White Sox will too.
Maybe the Marlins won't go 11 and 151.
Yeah, nice staff.
Pretty it's a little rough out there.
So I was like, is he setting us up? Is he not setting us up?
I think he is. I think he's set. Well, I think there's two possibilities here.
Okay.
I think number one, he's setting us up for a scenario in which they're going to have to give a couple different guys looks.
Shane, play clip 4. See if Ravi's right.
Okay, let me get to it here.
Well, no, yeah, that's why you got to be ready. Pay attention now.
I wouldn't anticipate us saying, "Hey, this guy is the starter." Like today, because I thought all 3 quarterbacks went out there today and said, "Hey, I can be the starter." And that's my challenge to the players: is stop. Don't worry about like where you stand at all positions. Don't worry about how much opportunities you're getting. Just worry about what the tape looks like. Do you look like a Big Ten winning quarterback? Do you look like a Big Ten winning left tackle? Do you look like a Big Ten winning D tackle? And if you do, your time will come. So that's a long, very philosophical answer. But I would say it would take a while because I just think there's so many guys doing good things. I want to give them a fair shot.
Yeah, I think there's.
Do you like your train of thought?
I do. I think there's. I mean, I lock in on these rule pressers. I don't love the rest of the guys' pressers as much as you do, but not just from Nebraska. I mean, just in general.
That's a low key hate. It's okay.
It's not a hate. You have a fascination with press conferences that I don't generally share outside of our guy Coach Rule, and so no. But I'm listening to this and I go, okay, one of two things is happening here. He's either setting us up for a situation where multiple guys are going to play. And I don't think it's going to be like a rotating quarterback system, but just I think there is a opportunity there for multiple guys to get looks. Or secondly, he is just trying to dissipate pressure on who he already knows the starter is going to be.
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty sure it's one of those two things.
Yeah.
And if I had to guess, it's the second. It's the latter of those two, but I don't know. Like that's just my guess because I kind of mentioned this when they showed the quarterback session to the media earlier, right? That maybe he was playing 4D chess on us here and being like, hey, I know that Daniel's going to look really good in this session. I want people to see that he looks really good and know that, hey, this guy is going to perform. And so maybe for at least a week or two, it'll stop being everything's the Dylan Raiola show. I don't even know if that's just to take pressure off of Dylan.
So do you know what I think it is with Dylan, though? I believe this. The more I listen to people who don't really see things, but will pawn it off as though they do, or don't see a lot.
I don't know what they're watching when they see it.
And I don't want to attack people's football acumen as much as just keep it 100, right? Like, the more this thing is playing out, it seems like we want whatever it is we think we want confirmed by however little we do see.
Mm-hmm.
Like we go in with this thing, and then that's the way that we want to watch it.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Because I hear like these little snippets after these long extended pieces of footage, and I'm like, are we watching the same thing, or am I crazy? Because it could very well be the latter. Could be.
Just because you're crazy doesn't mean you're not right. That's DB. I'm Ravi. Lulla. More Hurrdat Sports Radio coming up next.
be back. We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
Yeah, I mean, this was the most dominant day we've had on offense ever. I mean, this is the first time we've ever at practice. I mean, the first time ever, like, I don't know, might have been 8, 9, 10, 12 touchdowns out there today. So explosive plays, big plays. I think we had one fumble late, with the threes. I thought the ball was protected. Now, in all fairness, now we're not hitting the quarterback, and I'm letting a lot of plays extend. So we might go back and say, well, that would have been a sack. I don't want to sound the alarm. It's just, the ability to throw and catch the ball, and guys making making plays after the catch has been good. We didn't run the ball. We had one long explosive run, but on offense, by far the best day we've ever had since I've been here.
We're back, wrapping up hour number 1 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. We're live on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla.
Okay, that makes more sense. Because I didn't listen through the last portion, believe it or not. And then
let some stuff extend a little bit.
Yeah.
It makes a difference, obviously.
And he also said, now we're not hitting those guys. It just, because I was kind of befuddled. I'm like, not to talk bad about anybody, but I did wonder if I was crazy. Because I'm like, wait, who said what to you? He said, I don't know what he was watching. You know what I mean? Because I want to say, people can make you dumber. But maybe it's like kind of more what you said. Maybe people don't know if they're watching. I'm like, those wouldn't have been real plays. And I'm not being dismissive of the offense's day because he quantified it. He said, in terms of just throwing and catching the ball, okay. Yeah, I'm kind of in.
Vibing a little bit more now.
Yeah, because remember when we went to break, I'm like, am I crazy?
Yeah. Could be, but doesn't mean.
But I was wondering. I had to hear that clip again.
Yeah, so he says again. He goes, we're not hitting the quarterbacks, but he liked their ability to throw the ball, play catch, make plays after the catch. He says that I think later in the clip where he liked the ability of what they were doing in terms of creating big plays.
Hey, so how about the conversation, the very nuanced conversation we had last week about wide receivers? Remember I told you about running through a catch, giving your quarterback room to fade, completing the route, finishing at the top of the route. We get done having those conversations. Full disclosure, this is honest to goodness truth. We get done having these conversations, and sometimes I feel like I'm doing too much, right? Like, maybe I need a dry erase board. I'm not sure people know what we're talking about, but then I always go back, and people are appreciative of the nuanced conversation because I think they feel like they learn, which is part of the reason I think people listen to us. But to hear him say what he said about catching the ball, finishing big plays, putting themselves in position to have big plays. That's the lay terms for what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
He actually gave that. He gave that conversation last week.
Yeah.
He gave it credibility. He 100% gave it credibility because, you kind of wonder, right? I'm like, finish through the route, go get it. Like, that's a better ball than the result. Remember, I was saying that, like, those are the things that I'm talking about.
And it seems like that's an area that, based on context here, right, where it maybe wasn't what you wanted to see previously, and they improved on that in the scrimmage, right? Like, it was an area of improvement, which leads you to believe that it was an area where they weren't doing what they needed to do at the time.
Do with that what you will, right? That's one of those things. Would you? Yeah.
Like, I mean,
you could draw that conclusion,
and I think you should draw that conclusion, just kind of based on your logical deductions there. I do think it's really interesting the way he's talking about the quarterbacks. Because
we tried to set this up for 2 months. Where have you landed with the breakdowns?
Yeah, so I mean, again, I think there's one of two things happening here. He's either getting you ready that multiple guys are going to play, or that the guy that starts game 1 isn't necessarily going to start game 2, 3, 4, 5, right? Or he is trying to diffuse unreasonable expectations. Because by definition, right, we know what Heinrich Haarberg was last year. Maybe he got a lot better, and it sounds like he has improved, especially in his passing game, right? But if we know what Heinrich Haarberg was last year, and it's still a competition between two freshmen, one super highly touted, one reasonably highly touted, in Dylan Raiola and Danny Kaelin, that if we know where one of those three guys is already, and it's close between all three, then he's telling us don't have unreasonable expectations for the freshman. Right?
Yeah.
That's one of the things he could be telling us. Don't have unreasonable expectations for the freshman. This guy that you guys kind of maligned last year who won us 5 games, by the way, was 5-3 as a starter. The only quarterback that won any games for Nebraska last year, by the way. They're not so far ahead of him that he's not in the competition. So gauge your expectations accordingly.
And the other thing is, because we know that 1A is, we don't really say anything too critical about Dylan, because that's the one 96% of the fan base assumes and wants to start, right?
Minimum, yeah.
So we just set him aside. Much like you said about Harburg in the 5-game span, it's just how I feel about Kalen coming off his high school career. Like, people that watched a fair amount of it just think, no way.
Yeah.
No way. I don't see it.
And
I don't see it, right? Like, hit the critics. But this is the one thing that I think is very interesting with this coaching staff. I always wonder, they're always talking about getting better and competitiveness and development. There's this part of me that thinks, man, you know what? Sure, they want to win games, but you want proof of concept too. You want Harburg better.
Yeah.
You want
it to be a
Kalen better.
100%.
You want Raiola pushed, right? Like, those are things that as a staff let you know that you are who you think you are. So maybe they can't help but to talk about it in those terms, because it's exactly who they are. And it doesn't mean that they're giving us any lip service. That's kind of what I think as I listen to you lay out the scenarios, and I try to pit it with what I actually think. Nobody wants Harburg to not get better. Right?
Yeah.
Nobody wants...
Even the people that don't want him to start should want him to get better.
Yeah, so
right?
Let's go back to something kind of weird. Remember when they went back and got Kalen? They stayed with it. And what did we say on all the local airwaves? Oh, man, good job, Coach Rule, like keeping those lines of communication open. And we praised how open and honest he was with the assessment and the recruiting process. And hey, I told you we had a guy, and I appreciate your patience in this. We praise that, right? You're talking about a staff, though, that they're not done there yet. They want to let you know that them doing that wasn't just some charity case because they didn't have anybody else. They think that they can get him ready to play.
They think he's actually good.
So you don't think that they want to get him ready to play?
Yeah.
Like, that's just gonna be who they are.
Or you even want to go back to
you're going to see some DBs fall by the wayside. You're going to be like, wait, I thought, no, man, they're going to pride because they have guy X, Y, and Z. Doesn't mean they're not going to coach these guys really, really hard. And some guys are going to fall by the wayside. You're going to see the same thing at wide receiver. It's just going to be the cost of doing business.
And, you don't think that there's some of that as well with the way the previous staff thought about Heinrich Harburg as a quarterback and the way that they think about Heinrich Harburg as a quarterback?
I doubt it.
You don't
right?
think so?
Okay. So yes and no. That's fair, right? Does it occasionally come up from probably more H2s? I just call them H2O because offense, right? 2 H's and O is not water, but offense. So from H2's vantage point, there's always going to be a story to tell these guys didn't want me to play. I couldn't even go
Wouldn't let me in the quarterback room.
Couldn't go to quarterback meetings, right? Coach, the new staff knows that, right? And I think they like Harburg so much as a person and what he brings to the table in terms of being unselfish. They're pot committed to those kinds of players. So that's
what I mean by proof of concept.
No, I know, right? Yeah. Like that's a good, like that. So because I didn't really want to go back and rationalize. Do I think he can? It's deeper than
can he play quarterback?
Can he play quarterback?
Yeah, it's can a guy that has all the things that we want our team to be about?
Can he be functional in our program?
Can he, whether it's quarterback, whether it's H-back, whatever it is, right?
Yeah, because he
was left for dead.
Yeah, and that stuff's going to matter.
Yes. And so that's the proof of concept, right?
Right.
Is
when that portal opens and closes and you need people to believe in you and man, I'm scared to go out there because this could be the abyss.
Yeah.
And this is pretty good.
Yeah.
Those are the times that get those folks to not
And I know
not get in the portal.
That if I do what this coaching staff asks me, I know that if I'm about what they're about,
what does he say once a week?
There will be a place for me.
What does he say once a week?
What's that?
Hey, you hang in there and show up every day and get better. You'll at some point you'll play.
Well, I mean, what did he say yesterday?
He says it all the time.
What did he say yesterday? I'm sure we'll get to it later, but he goes, "Don't worry about playing time. Are you being developed to be a pro?" Because if
that was last week. Yeah.
If you are, your time will come.
Yeah.
Right? Your time will come if you're being developed to be a pro. Don't worry about the playing time right now. Are you getting better? Are you being developed to be a pro? We'll get into more of Coach Rule, I'm sure. I am going to yell at Dion for a minute at some point today because not only is he stupid, but he thinks we're stupid too. And we'll get to that. But Sam McKewon coming up next.
We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio. Here is the sports editor for the Omaha World-Herald, Sam McKewon.
That's fine. That's fine. That's fine.
Sam McKewon.
We're going you want to go? That kind of thing.
Sam McKewon.
Are you guys going? Sure.
Now, Sam McKewon.
You walk out in the stadium and there's no one in the stands really. It's dead. There's no energy. And all great teams, to quote Andy Reid, have to do a couple of things, but one of them, they have to create their own energy. And so I just didn't feel the energy from the whole team. So I didn't yell at the defense. The defense dominated the offense last week. The offense had a couple good things.
Kicking off hour number 2 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590 ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. Live on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube from the Pillar Exterior stage. DB looks dumbfounded. What happened?
Can I just say something?
Yeah.
What did I tell you last week?
That the defense was good.
I was like, what is he talking about? And I felt like, okay, maybe T-Dub's just eating that because they didn't meet their level of expectations either.
Mm-hmm.
They kicked their ass.
Hey, but good enough doesn't always just mean good.
I know. We had those whole beautiful segments, but this is like Revelation Monday. The offensive wide receivers, the quarterback play.
It's almost.
I'm like, why would Tony eat that? Well, maybe he felt like he wasn't perfect because he didn't, and he said it out loud. Like
everybody's 1% wrong. Everybody's 1% wrong.
I'm just. This is just good to know that I'm not as
except
crazy
us. I think we're like 100%
crazy
right,
as people,
as the internet would lead you to believe.
Yeah, and I know I'm nuts, but man,
yeah, just because you're nuts doesn't mean you're wrong.
I'm like, what is he talking about?
I don't know, but it seems like we're catching a lot of W's this morning on being right. Let's get it right one more time and talk to our guy Sam McKewon from the Omaha World-Herald here on the Hurrdat Hotline. Sam, what's going on?
Hey man, how you doing?
I'm good, Sam. How was well, it's Monday, it's you. How's the weather in the old Cap City right now?
Cold, cloudy.
Yeah.
Gray. It's like Seattle.
Okay.
People say that about Lincoln all the time, just like Seattle.
The weather today is very green. Very green.
Okay, so
very nice.
how are the Lincoln lawns, Sam? Are they looking a little thick, a little plush, dark green?
Yeah. Yep, they're starting to look good. I'm gonna go out and I'm gonna go to drive around to a couple golf courses today. I have not been golfing much this spring. I just haven't had a lot of time, and the weather is the time and the weather is not cooperated. So this might be a week before the spring game where I get in around. We'll just have to see if I've got time.
Okay.
I like it, Sam. When you hear Coach Rule talk about the offense being dominant, on the scrimmage on Saturday, is there any part of you that doesn't take him at face value there? Because he does qualify it a little bit. Says, he let some plays run a little longer than they normally would. I think he is talking. I think he was trying to be relatively positive. He did qualify it with, I let some of the plays extend a little bit, and they can't get sacked. And so I think what he was trying to do, or what Nebraska was trying to do, is just get a look at what it looks like, with these quarterbacks able to operate without a pass rush coming at them. Obviously, Nebraska can blitz QBs and do a lot of different things. And it also may look like on Saturday at the spring game, if those touch sacks are real, they may not be able to make some of the plays that they were able to make. I have to kind of take him at as much face value as I can, just based on the fact that I don't get to see practice. So, he's the head coach of the team, so he can say what he wants to say, and we'll report that. I would assume that it was their best day, their best scrimmage since he's been there. I mean, unless he's forgetting something, I think I can take him at that face value. We'll see how good of a performance they put forth in the spring game. Sam, do you believe him when he says he doesn't remember who did the 99-yard drive? Because that was the one time where I was like,
hello?
Yeah. Sam, you there?
You there, Sam?
Oh.
Uh-oh. Are you going through?
Hello.
Sam?
Hi, Sam. Are you
hear us?
underwater? An abyss? Sam?
Shane, can we get him back?
Shane, let's go get Sam back, please.
Okay.
Thank you. So the interesting thing about that, and I want to hear your follow up. Do you know what I think it is?
What's that?
Again, but I am getting kind of verified here the last couple of days. You know what I think it is?
What's that?
I think it's relative to what he's seen.
Dominant to what he's seen?
Yep.
That's fair.
Because he quantified it with the amount of turnovers.
Yep.
And it was only the one.
On the third team, he said.
Yep. And I know that hadn't happened.
Sure.
In a year and a half. And if I go back to the barometer, is it better than have been bad, or is it dominant as in
actually good?
It's baseline good.
Sam's back.
Sam, can you hear us?
You there, Sam? Shane?
I think something else is going on.
Sam, Sam, you there?
I think something else is going on because it sounded like he was still on the line when we hung up, Shane. So can we see what's going on?
Good thing Sasha walked in. That's for darn sure.
Yeah, like you just hung up. It still sound. I'm still getting.
I can still hear him. So you haven't completely hung up with Sam.
Or there's something going on with the feed. Either way. Yeah, because I'm getting a weird feedback thing too.
As am I. As am I.
No, yeah, that's a fair question, right? Because
remember when I was like, yeah, when I say it feels like football, it's not because I've been watching bad football and it's just better than bad.
Yeah, it feels like actual football.
It feels like actual football.
Yeah.
So I don't know, but I'm trending, so I might as well write it.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's just because it's been better than anything he's seen. Because there have been some go all the way back to last year, and I remember I was like, man, I don't know.
Been some rough stuff on offense.
Yeah, I don't know.
Boy,
right? I'm not making
that.
It's not revisionist history. I'm like,
no, that's real. You were accurate on that.
I said, how are they going to score?
Yeah, and they didn't. Not a lot.
I'm like, how are these guys going to get chunk plays?
Well, and the nice thing about and maybe this isn't fair. But I grade the offense and the defense a little differently, right? Because they're starting at different points.
Yeah, so you're going to be grading the defense on their peak last year.
Yes,
okay.
And you're grading the offense almost on a curve.
All right, there we go. I think we have Sam. Are you with us?
I'm back.
Yeah, let's go.
Sam, we appreciate you working with us through there. So I will say the one thing where I maybe didn't take Coach Rule at his word a little bit was, do you believe that he didn't remember who had the 99-yard drive? Because I don't believe that.
Well, I'm the one who asked. He looked over at Susan, and I think both of them said Heinrich. And then he wasn't sure he remembered. I wanted to ask that. I think just to know. I think the lead a 99-yard drive in a scrimmage is a good thing
for sure.
And so, who's the quarterback who led that? And he said he didn't remember. He wasn't sure if it was Heinrich. So I guess it wasn't Danny.
So, Sam, this is weird because part of me wants not to believe him, but two things. Number one, he does so many things during a goddamn practice, right? He may be getting into a coach, a player. He may pull a couple of guys to the side. Like he is everywhere. So I'll give him the benefit of the doubt that he maybe didn't know. But here's the other thing. I asked him about something last Saturday, and he responded to me that he didn't basically know what I was talking about. And it was arguably the biggest thing that happened during the practice. And I remember thinking to myself, did he black out? Like, I'm dead serious, Sam. I don't know if he's so intense and I joked with him. I was like, did you just have like a Will Ferrell old school moment? He didn't really remember what I was talking about during the course of a practice. And I kind of believed him.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think he's pretty intense.
I was just getting ready to say he revs exceptionally high.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's pretty common for a lot of coaches, but he has really good recall after the fact, because the question I asked him about the third down defense on Saturday, and I wrote about it today, he had really good recall about the game that obviously sticks in their craw, which was that Wisconsin game where they go 14-0 early. And I'm sure they've thought about that game a lot and, had that crowd out of it. Wisconsin's on the ropes. They had really struggled the week before. And Nebraska's defense kind of let them back in it. I know the offense made a mistake and didn't get a fourth down, but it was more the defense. And so he knew the game that, that really bothered him and frustrated him from a third down perspective. And I found that notable. So he's got really good recall. I think short-term memory can sort of wax and wane depending on what you're trying to get done. And then, I don't know if many coaches. So we talked to recruit after recruit after recruit, and the recruits say they've never seen a head coach do what he does in practice. Like that's what. Now maybe this happened 25 years ago, but they've never seen a head coach at a college practice do what he does. He's a lot of times. Just talked to one recruit who said, who's probably going to commit eventually, who said, a lot of times at the practices, the coaches are kind of just standing in the back, or they might be like half step away or even in a tower, and Rule is in the middle of everything. And I think that's actually rare. I think Rule likes doing that. That's something he enjoys, so he does it. But I could see him not always necessarily being aware of everything that's going on in the moment. Sure, absolutely.
I mean, I watched a drive last Saturday where he had four. He had three of the guys in green jerseys, and his back was to the direction they were going because he was talking to the quarterback. So, I mean, I don't know. He does. I just never. The whole chess checkers thing kind of makes me question myself sometimes. But man,
right?
He makes it pretty believable. Maybe he's just significantly smarter than what I think. But I do know, like I have said, I remember the couple of meltdowns that I've had, like at practice or at halftime. Like I remember them, but I don't really recall what I couldn't recreate them. I mean, I had one against Southwest that everybody says was legendary, and I don't have a clue what I said, Sam.
Right. I think that's pretty common. I think that Rule, he coaches hard in practice. I think he does so also in the games. I for example, I think it's going to benefit them to have Glenn Thomas on the sidelines because I thought there were times last season where Rule was almost becoming the quarterback coach. And it's not that he doesn't know how to do it. He does, actually. He knows how to coach literally every position on the field. I just didn't always think that was, you've got to have a person who manages the totality of the game. And I felt like at times, especially when Satterfield went upstairs to call the plays, I'm not saying the play calling didn't get better. In some ways it did. They were able to hit some big plays later in the season. But then it became like Matt Rule's job to explain to Harper what's going on. And I didn't feel like it went well. And so I thought it was really important that they get a coach in the offseason so that Rule doesn't have to divert 47 seconds of his attention to the finer points of that position. I do think they're going to be better for that one change alone. I also will be curious to see, including on Saturday, just how all three quarterbacks handle the operation, who plays well, who doesn't, who does the mechanical stuff right, like the stuff that happens in the first 3 or 4 seconds of a play versus the outcome of the play. How that operation looks. I'll be curious to see how it goes.
Sam, speaking of Saturday, how much do you think we're actually going to see, right? Because I know they're probably going to keep it pretty vanilla in terms of play calling, but in terms of personnel, do you think they're going to try and hide some of that as well? Or just what are your expectations for Saturday?
I don't know that they have to show, all of the senior guys. I don't know how much Jamal Banks is going to play. That's a question mark. I don't know that everybody kind of knows what Emmett Johnson is. I don't know that he needs to play and carry the ball 17 times. I suppose he might. I do think some of the young players would benefit from the experience of being out on the field. So that means all of the young corners, all of the young receivers, maybe not Jalen Lloyd, maybe not Malachi Coleman, he's banged up, but Corey Barney, Paul, Demetrius Bell, if he's healthy. We'll find all those out probably on Thursday. Rule. Some of the young tight ends, I think they like their tight end group. We don't know a lot about them. We know a lot about Fedoni and Borkircher. we don't know much about the guys that are on hand or Smith Flores, or we'll learn more about that group. I think the offensive linemen need to play. The Tula, Sledge, maybe not Ben Scott, maybe not Bryce Benhart, but definitely need to see the picture of Justin Evans-Jenkins and Sledge, Gar, that kind of stuff. I think that's absolutely in play for Saturday. And then on the defensive side, you really do need to see how some of those young backers and young corners play. So if you expose some personnel, that's just kind of life. There's going to be some guys in that secondary who are pretty young, who are probably going to get pressed into action. It's just, and not because Nebraska doesn't like their older guys. I think they've got some young guys that they like quite a bit, and we'll see some of those guys on Saturday.
Yeah. So the thing I always wonder about their personality and kind of what they're doing. I wonder if this is the kind of staff that in year 2 of an offensive basically overhaul, I'm not sure they'll care what they run. Right? Because I don't know if you can afford. I guess you can be vanilla and that's fine, but maybe vanilla is who they need to be. Do you know what I mean? Like it could just be it could just be what it is, and there is no real gamesmanship to it.
Like they could win 8 games with having just an average offense, right? I mean, somewhere in that neighborhood.
You hope, yeah. I could see
the worst offense in 50 years. Yeah, absolutely.
Like if you're just functional, you can win 8 games.
Because that's what they had last year was the worst offense in 50 years.
Yeah.
So that's why, Sam, and I'm not.
So maybe vanilla is what you order. Like maybe that's what's on the menu.
I'm not Denny Downer, and it's not just because I like vanilla bean, but
underrated.
It's fantastic. Maybe it's just that when you were so bad with the turnover margin and so poor offensively, you can hear what he says when he said, okay, it's the best day of offense we've had. He's probably telling the truth, but that doesn't that there's no magic that says, oh yeah, that's capable of being good enough against UTEP in 3 months. Do you know what I mean? It could just be relative to where they have been. Now, if you heard that from the defense and you had seen the defense play at high levels for stretches, even though now we've talked ourselves out of it that they weren't very good because they played bad offenses too. That's kind of just the nature of a fan. But it would probably move our needle a little more.
Yeah, it would. First to the defense. The defense was great last year in so many different ways. I think this weekend's NFL draft results will again show, though, that like they're doing it. They're not doing it with Ohio State players. And so, some of the things that Nebraska's defense has to improve on is related to recruiting and talent development, and also a little bit better on third down. There's some stats in what I wrote today that underline why they would have been frustrated with their third down performance last season. As it relates to the offense, I think relative to what it was last year, if Nebraska is 4 to 6 points better this season, it will win 2 to 3 more games. As a result, I think the schedule lines up. And again, the question of and this is what people don't always necessarily understand in the way that you do. When they say vanilla, they're talking about what? Like what do they mean by that? What do they mean by vanilla? Because a fan will watch the game and say whatever, but what do they mean by that?
Yeah. So it's like, that's a really good point, because vanilla doesn't mean it's not without it's whatever. Vanilla is a standard in which you want to operate where you don't have to get outside yourself to execute well, right? So the getting outside yourself part is relevant to what you think you're comfortable doing. That's the baseline. And it's my vanilla may not be, well, let's say, Millard South's vanilla may not be the same as Westside's vanilla, or USC's vanilla may not be the same thing as Gretna's vanilla. Right. Do you know what I mean? So I do think it's important to make that distinction because you go in with a concept of who you think you are. And vanilla means how close can we stay to that without having to get off track. That's kind of how I would explain it in a nutshell.
Because last year, for example, I wouldn't describe last year's team, the run game that Nebraska's offense had, as necessarily vanilla.
Oh, I completely agree.
They were doing a lot of
it was I completely agree.
Because they felt like they had to make anything work.
Right.
That's pretty.
Right.
That's a great call, Sam.
They were doing a lot of different stuff, and so it didn't always work, or it became less effective. But incorporating the option and some of those power plays that Osborne used to run, that I assume Ron Brown talked to him about.
Yeah, and you're running split zone, you're running duo. Like
right.
There was a lot in
the option pass.
There was a lot. There was a lot in that running game. I completely agree with that.
So what I would assume they mean, and wouldn't have almost every team wants to do. Almost every team wants to be able to say, we've got a good enough offensive line that we're going to keep, whether we're from under center or we're from the shotgun. We're going to run inside zone and outside zone. Now, they've talked about running a stretch zone, which would be interesting. I'm intrigued to see that, if that's what they actually want to do. Iowa runs that for people who are listening. But they want to be able to run inside zone and outside zone, run those very effectively, then have maybe some man blocking plays, gap scheme plays, and then be able to throw the ball. And so, if by vanilla they mean we are going to be the best inside zone running team in the Big Ten, that's great. If you can gain yards consistently on that play and you don't need to, your backs are good enough and your line's good enough and all that, you don't have to go to the second and third and fourth iteration of your run game. That's great. I don't know what it means in the pass game, and I'm not sure it's going to be that vanilla. I think they're as the season goes on, and Dylan presumably, but whatever quarterback gets a little bit more comfortable, I think they will add more and more things to their pass game. They will try to, because they're going to have to add things to beat better teams. You don't beat Ohio State with 6 pass plays. It just doesn't work like that. So I'll be curious to see what we see on Saturday, and then how it builds over the rest of the season when it comes.
Sam, real quick, got about a minute left here with you. When you hear him tell stories about Charlie Brewer from Baylor and say, he was a starter after a little bit as a freshman, but then had a competition as a sophomore, what do you think he's preparing us for when he tells us those stories?
In that particular case, I think, again, he has really good recall. I don't know that we're getting prepared for anything, because I think there might only be about 4 people in that room that even know what the 2018 and 2019 Baylor teams look like.
Mm-hmm.
So if he's preparing anybody for anything, maybe he's preparing his team to understand that they're going to have to compete, and that, he loves players who take it on themselves and don't have their parents weigh in. But yeah, there's a lot of people in there that, the thing that animates most people covering the team about Rule is the way that he talks about culture, and probably the way that he talks about NIL, getting into that sort of roster dynamic with Charlie Brewer. Again, that's deep in the weeds. I find that interesting. I remember Charlie Brewer. I think he was a good player. I think Nebraska would benefit from having a player like that. But I think that's just Rule going off into whatever tangent he is in that moment. He has a lot of collective experience in so many different ways. He can. Very few coaches can talk about a 0-star at Temple, and then an all-pro like Christian McCaffrey with the Panthers. Very few people could do that in the span of 7 years of coaching. And so he's able to move across the spectrum that, frankly, I think helps them in recruiting, because I think players understand that he can kind of connect over here and he can kind of connect over there.
That's Sam McKewon from Omaha World-Herald. Sam, we appreciate it. We'll talk to you again next week.
Thanks, Sam.
Take care.
We will be back. will be back. We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
Yeah, so third down defense to me, if everything's pressure, you're never going to be great. You have to have the ability to rush with four, and you have to have the ability to third and 3 to 6. You have to be able to play man. You know what I'm saying? You have to be able to line up and play man, and you can't have a guy that like, hey, like, Wisconsin put Spalding at, number 3, or I think it's his name, and he, kept winning on option routes. You have to have the ability to play man versus all the bunches and stacks. And then when you get to the longer yardage, have the ability to rush 4 and get home. And one of the things in the Big Ten, at least last year, you had Tanner Mordecai, you had all these guys who could get out of the pocket and run. So you have to defend that too. So it's getting great rushers who are also disciplined enough to keep guys in the pocket, the ability to play man, and then still have the pressure package. Like Tony's always going to create chaos, but on 3rd and 7, and if you look back to last year, like halfway through the year, Sam, we weren't doing great, and then we got ourselves down even lower. We have to make like an 8% jump. I think we're like at 38 in that range. We've got to get down into like the 20s, like the high 20s, to be a dominant defense.
We're back here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities, live on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube from the Pillar Exterior stage. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla. Want to remind you to make sure you go out and see the Omaha Supernovas. They got a 3-2 thriller victory on Saturday. Hopefully you were one of the 11,300 people in the building for that one.
They're getting good numbers, man.
They are top 6 attendance marks in United States Pro Volleyball history belong to the Omaha Supernovas. Let's make it 7 on Friday. It's a late start, 8:30 p.m. It's also a TV game, CBS Sports Network getting ramped up as they're going to show the Pro Volleyball Federation Championships, which are also here in Omaha. But you can get tickets, supernovas.com. That's an 8:30 p.m. start. It's going to be a little late night after dark with the Supernovas. Make sure you go to supernovas.com to check it out and get all the details you need, including access to tickets right there. But go ahead. No, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, listening to the opening clip, it's stuff like that. He butchered the name. It's not Sprawling, it's Will Pauling, but no big deal, right? Because
you know what he's talking about.
Yeah, he worked out on Nebraska, especially in the slot. And if you remember, that was one of the few times in the presser where, he was a little dumbfounded on the twists and the stunts on the pass rush on third down, kind of opening up passing lanes. He was very specific after that game, because I think Wisconsin ended up winning 24-17, and there were a ton of things that went wrong down the stretch for Nebraska, but he's very, very consistent with that message. 30% I think would get it done. High 20s, you're locked in probably to the top spot, but you do need the manageable, like if you want to be thought of amongst elite, low 30s, right? You want 32, 33%. But
I just love how specific he gets about stuff, right?
Okay, so we're talking about recall and blacking out and versus whatever. He has the ability to do this when he's just having a normal dialogue, or there are things that are kind of eating at him where they want to get better. So you have you have empirical data, right? You look back and then there are things that kind of stick in their craw about getting off the field on third down and stuff like that. But then you pit it against like these fits of rage. Rage is too strong. Like these moments where
passionate outbursts.
Yeah. Where it's like, and I'll keep going back to this because I kind of had this I had this card in my sleeve. But again, I'm the beneficiary of seeing things that a lot of other people don't. So I don't throw that in people's face. But the Hurley thing was an interesting discussion because there a lot of Coach Rule and that East Coast tough, competitive, demanding thing are things that nobody gets to see, but it's in there. Like, not a nice person, great leader, but not tremendously comforting. Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, or letting guys off the hook, or kind of some of the things that he said.
But I bet he can be when he needs to be.
No, which is what I was saying about Coach Hurley. What about him the other maybe 98% of the time? What if he's kind of loving on his guys in ways that we don't see? And I don't. The point isn't to rehash that. The point is, I think deep down, people want to be led, and if you're honest with them, they will respond, because as long as you're not belittling in a way in which they're not getting any guidance on what they need to do. Yes. Guidance on what they need to do to be better. Then you probably have a problem. But if they are, see, you can do that.
There's a huge difference in types of yelling, right? People look at Bob Knight and listen, I don't like Dan Hurley, but that doesn't mean I necessarily think he's a bad guy, or I certainly don't think he's a bad coach. I don't know that I ever thought he was a bad guy. I just don't like him. Like, both can be true. I can not like someone and not be like, oh, they're a bad person.
Passionate outburst may be a T-shirt.
I've been listening to Coach Hurley, Danny Hurley a lot.
One of my coaches likes that.
Like, there's I don't like Deion, and I think Deion's a bad guy, which we'll get to. I don't know that I think Dan Hurley's a bad guy, but I still don't like him.
Okay.
Right? So there's a difference.
Yeah.
Okay. That's like the Dan Hurley is a me thing. The Deion, I think, is a Deion thing. Right? So that's kind of where I make that distinction. But there's a huge difference between Bob Knight yelling at people and calling them derogatory names. And not that Bob Knight didn't do any instructing, but he also famously did a lot of the other stuff too, right? Belittling people, calling them derogatory names or slurs or whatever, and like doing the whole thing. There's a big difference between that and having these passionate outbursts where you're actually instructing, right? Because what was the outburst about a couple weeks ago? It was about, hey, we got to bring our own energy. Right? There's not everybody, not everywhere is Memorial Stadium where you have 90,000 people.
Stop watching on the sidelines. Always be coaching.
Yeah, like there's
respond well to coaching when you get it. Like don't make the same mistake. There's lots of that.
Like there's way more of that, and that's not to say that I don't know. I'm not there, and none of us are there all the time, right? Except for the players. That's not to say that it never goes into a place where you'd rather it wouldn't in terms of the way people receive it. But overall, the dramatically overwhelming theme is teaching, right? Now it's teaching a little loudly sometimes, right? You're teaching in a little different tone of voice, but it's still teaching at the end of the day and not belittling. It's not demeaning. It's not a verbal abuse, if you will. And there's a huge difference there.
He's so low key set the tone last year early. When I told you we would have these conversations, he would tell the guys, he'd say, DB's why would these guys want to argue with me? Like why do you want to push back on what I'm telling them? I'm not always going to be right, but I have been there. I do know, and I care about you. So
that's the part that matters the most.
So, and he even corrected, he even fixed himself. He said, so the only thing I have to do is make sure that they know that I care.
I care about you.
Exactly.
That's the thing that matters the most.
Because after that, he's like, well, why would we be at odds? Don't come to practice with an attitude. Like I want the best for you.
I'm trying to get the best out of you.
So,
and we talked about this last week, and I know what's best for you.
He said it in passing, like no big deal, right?
No big deal.
But it's part of the whole dynamics. I look at all the little things about when you can, and I say this 2 trillion times, like people that love you can tell you some really hard things about yourself because it's coming from a good place. And we talk about combating the portal and making it a home. I looked at, obviously getting ready to leave, and we got to do all this onboarding stuff and for school. And I look at, and I really studied it. I'm like, okay, how can we make this a smooth transition? They go as far as to say restaurant ideas, food choices. Hey, you like Thai? Here's Thai. You like African? Here's African. You like Mexican? Here's Mexican. You like soul food? Here's soul food. The way that they try to diversify even the little things to make it make the culture shock seem like a lot subtle, more subtle of a blow. They're willing to do it. Yeah. You look at the whole onboarding staff and folks that are responsible for those portions, just how diversified it is. It's all intentional. Right? We're family. We want the best for you. Now that's not going to mean this is a Wild Wild West free for all. There's going to be constructive criticisms. Just know that it comes from a good place because we're doing all these other things too.
That's CB. I'm Ravi. Lulla. We'll wrap up hour number 2 next here on Hurrdat Sports Radio.
We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
Well, why would you go somewhere else? I mean, you have the best facilities in college football and elite education, the best academic services I've ever been around, elite life skills and player development, the best nutritionist in football, one of the best strength coaches I've ever been around, elite sports science, elite medicine. Coach, you want to go to the NFL? You have a bunch of coaches who've been to the NFL. Why would you go anywhere else? You have the best fan base in college football, the best media base in football. You're seriously going to get. I mean that sincerely. You're going to get covered here. Like sometimes kids will say, "I'm thinking about this." I'm like, "All right, go play in front of 25,000 people and play in obscurity." Like, I wish the teams we placed. Like, I like to listen to their player interviews. No one else. Make sure you guys know you have a good too, but like our players have a good. Like, no one else has 5 players every Tuesday and Wednesday getting interviewed. Like, so when you come here, you're getting those opportunities to build your brand. What's that they call it now? Build your brand. Like, you're getting opportunities to get yourself out there. Like, we have guys that do, they might do a radio show. They might do this. Like, again, why would you go anywhere else? You have everything you could possibly want here. There's 2 conferences that are dominant in college football. You're playing in them. It's all right here. So it might be right for some people. And I say that all the time, right? But our job is to make this an elite place.
Wrapping up hour number 2 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. We're live on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla. We're here on the Pillar Exterior stage. And I want to remind you about our friends at Warhorse Sportsbook. Warhorse Sportsbook is the best place in Nebraska to place your sports bets. You can go to the casino in Lincoln, or you can go check out Horseman's Park in Omaha, where they've got the kiosks for you to be able to place your bets, live bets, props, in-game parlays, straight bets, whatever you can think of. You can bet on nearly every major sporting event. Maybe you had a little cash riding on Haney Garcia this weekend. You like that plus money on Garcia. Maybe you're a big NBA, NHL guy and are trying to ride with some of these series. Whatever your game is, you can bet on almost anything at Warhorse Sportsbook. Go to warhorsecasino.com/sportsbook for a full list of details and house rules. That's Warhorse Sportsbook. No bets, no glory.
I'll take it. What do you think was stranger this weekend? Lillard not scoring a point in the second half after dropping 35 in the first.
It's pretty weird.
I don't know if I've ever seen somebody get into the 30s like that and not have another point.
Yeah, that's odd. That's super odd.
Or the fact that, and maybe it's not surprising because I think hockey is where this originated. Series don't start until a team wins on the road, where all the home teams won.
Yeah, and well, NBA's 8-0. Yeah.
So
no big deal.
Although OKC did,
they played around a little bit.
They showed exactly why I would have loved to have opened with them.
Yeah,
inexperience and weird shot selection.
If they get through this first round, I think they get more dangerous because they get a little get their little feet wet, a little seasoning. You know, maybe get that a little bit of the black
Kwame Brown,
a little Kwame Brown on there.
Mama seasoning.
You know, so but I want to get to that because
my guy Meat Dad would call that daddy dust.
Don't call it that. That's weird.
I don't even recognize what we're doing.
I don't need that. I don't need that.
This is hardcore carnivore seasoning. It's pretty good.
I'm good on that. I'm gonna pass on anything called daddy dust.
Don't put that crap on me.
Don't need that in my life. You know, when you're talking about
whatever the hell it is,
I don't know, Bo.
When you're talking about the rule last year, is like I don't know why these guys wouldn't listen to me. You know, I don't. I got that same vibe as he's talking about why guys would want to leave.
Just real matter of fact.
Yeah, like why would you want to leave?
Duh.
Why would you want to leave this place? And then he goes on this laundry list of all these things that Nebraska has to offer. And, you know, it kind of reminded me too of, because Nebraska fans sometimes, especially over the last decade or so, but you can go all the way back for like 20 years now, where, and you saw this a lot when Frost was, or people were talking about firing Frost in like 2021. And they're like, well, who are we going to get? Who's going to come here to coach? Mm-hmm. If Frost can't do it, like who would ever want to come here?
I love the made up voice. That's pretty cool.
It's a made up voice, but it's not a made up.
Who's that person?
I'll tell you off air. It's not a made up story though, right? Because that's a real thing. Not. That's a real thing that people like. Nebraska fans almost have a little, I think, inferiority syndrome might not be the right word for it, but there is I feel like we've been beaten down so much by the last couple of decades that sometimes Nebraskans forget how good it is here.
Yeah, and I think part of his message, Coach Rule, is to empower the fan base too.
100%.
He's not I'm with you there, because he's not just that woe was me stuff, you know, and he and I can have these fantastic, and it's not just it could be media, it could be anybody else, former players. He's very quick to tell you he doesn't own anything that happened previous to him being here.
Which that's fine.
He will nip that in the
bud.
He
does have to deal with the fallout of it.
No, see, those are two different things.
Sure, yeah, but it's important
but the more you understand the first, the less apt you'll be going to the latter. You don't have to, if you understand that anything pre him isn't on him, you may handle the fallout better in terms of him leveling your or buoying your expectations. That's not his job.
But I also appreciate that he recognizes there is emotional damage that's been done to the fan base, right?
It's the lowlights.
And he recognizes that. And like when I was going through counseling after my divorce, like I felt like I was a failure as a person.
Oh, right there with you.
Right?
Yeah.
And my counselor literally went through this exercise and just listed all of the he would list an attribute about me or something that I've done or whatever. He'd be like, is that true? Is that accurate? I would say yes. And he'd just go down. He was doing this for 10, 15 minutes just listing all these things. He goes, if I told you all about all those things about any other person in the world, what would you think about that person? I think they're a pretty good person. I think that, that seems like a good dude. And he's like, but you just told me all those things are true about you. And you don't like yourself right now. How is that possible? That's what I felt like when he's going through that list of things at Nebraska. Well, we've got the best this and the best that and the best nutrition and the best facilities and the best fans and the best whatever. It's like, I give you this list of things and you don't think that team can compete at the highest level? But I tell you that about any other team in the country. You give me that laundry list that he laid out about any other school in the country, I'd be like, that's a national championship program.
Yeah, and it's funny. He said this in a presser last year early when he said, physically, yeah, sure, we need to get better. We need player development. We got to get better players. He said our biggest hurdle isn't going to come in year one physically. It's going to be emotionally. Because what's he always talking about? No, hey, don't check the rearview mirror. Like, embrace the opportunity, play in such a way where the fourth quarters are going to be relevant. At some point, we'll win those close games. But he's also quick to say those one-score losses, not on him. But he does have to own the fact that his team is significantly traumatized, as is
the fan base.
The fan base that you just don't you typically in recent history have not won those games. Like, you literally wait for the other shoe to drop. And he said it best. And this was most recently after the Iowa game with the bowl loss dejection, just shooting the breeze. And it's like, Iowa didn't beat us because they're better across the board. Iowa beat us because emotionally they're superior. And I just was like,
that's another one of those saying the quiet part out loud things.
Just think about that for a second. Just being emotionally superior. As a guy that likes to compete and play, see, you can control that. So it's demoralizing to hear that out loud about something you care about. But it's a very real thing. You can control that part of the game.
Is it more demoralizing to know that about something that's in your control or that's outside your control? Because I think
I've debated this.
Because I think you can make the argument that knowing that your failure or your loss or whatever came from something within your control can be empowering.
So I'm that way. I've had this conversation.
Not everybody receives it the same way.
In my personal life, in business. Personally, I'll take every day that ends in Y, knowing I'm the one that did something wrong.
Because then you can fix it.
Because I can control that.
You can be like, oh, I can fix that.
Yeah. But I think a lot of people feel like, because it's so hard to forgive yourself, they don't want that ownership.
Well, it's
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, oh my gosh, I cannot believe I was the cause of this.
Yeah.
And and maybe it's because I've been in some dark spots, right? And come out of the back end where now I always want to be in control of my own emotions.
Yeah.
Right.
You want to have control over your own fate.
Yeah, 100%. And I know, and I wish that was for everybody, because it's I'm of the belief that just don't leave it up to anybody else.
Yeah.
Right.
But
it's hard for human, just what you were describing with the adjectives exercise.
Yeah.
It's just, for whatever the reason, I don't think it's human behavior.
Well, and here's where the hard part comes in with that, right? Is then if you do everything right, can you live with the results?
Yeah.
Like, if you do the things you can control, can you live with the results? And I think that's where there's sometimes a disconnect with people, right? Because they think, okay, if I do X, Y, and Z, then I should get W as a result, right? Whereas sometimes it's like, hey, you do X, Y, and Z, your chances of getting W, the win, the result that you want, go up exponentially. But there's still a chance you take the L, right? Those are things that some people cannot live with the results of operating that way, and that's where it gets really difficult.
You want to see that manifest itself early on for this football team. If physically you feel like you're getting better, it's going to be that other part.
Emotionally, have you gotten better?
Yeah.
Have you gotten more mature? Have you gotten to the point where
can you handle having 6 of your first 7 at home? That's a new hurdle.
Can you handle a little bit of success?
Yeah.
More importantly, maybe can you handle a little bit of adversity? We'll talk to Jay Foreman coming up next, former Husker, here on Hurrdat Sports Radio.
We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. Welcome to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
Last week, I'm the club champion.
What?
El Champion. My ball striking is off the hook right now.
Oh, man. It's all the same, baby. You know, you got to keep it real 100%. Look, man, brother can't even get his rent, man, when people come asking me what's going on. Don't flip on it, brother. You know, I still got the one-hitter quitter.
We're kicking off hour number 3 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590 ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. We're live on KFOR in Lincoln for this third hour as well. And we are here at the Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill, where we will also be on Friday night. That's April 26th for Team Jack Live. It is a Team Jack Foundation event, party, maybe, if you will. Depends on how you're feeling. Kenny Bell, Nate Gary, Amir Abdullah will all be here at the Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill in La Vista. You can go to eventbrite.com, search for Team Jack to get tickets to this event. All ticket proceeds go to the Team Jack Foundation. You can also go to teamjackfoundation.org to get involved directly. Joining us now on the Hurrdat Hotline is Jay Foreman. Jay, how are you this morning?
Good. I'm doing all right, man. How you guys doing?
Jay Bird, what's up, buddy, man? Long time no chat, but not really. How we doing, man?
Yeah, long time no chat on the on the radio waves, but everything's all good, man. I mean, it's spring is springing, and football is footballing. So we got the gusty winds in Nebraska, so everything is a-okay.
Be honest, full disclosure, are you happier when I'm not bugging you at practice so you can actually watch what you want to, or do you prefer we just stand and talk to one another?
I don't really watch practice. Hey, man. You just say, hey, listen, it's 9:05. I'm just going to put you right on the hot spot.
Oh, I got to know how I need to proceed, man. Should I just leave you alone?
No, here's one thing I've learned and or came to realize. There's some former players I enjoy talking to, so practice is just like the background noise, and there's some that I try to avoid at all costs. And so that has been a hard. I would say this: it's been a hard lesson, but it's been a quick reminder that some things just never change. So no, I don't mind it. I don't really get watch practice. The one thing I will say about practice, and I've said this even the few times I popped my head in there last year, you know how it is, Damon. You walk through and it feels like football. So I mean, I think that's a huge step in the right direction. And so just on the quick snapshot, they definitely look like a better football team.
Hey, stay right there, because I say that, and I was like, and it might have been you. I think it was you I was talking to when I said, when I say it feels like football, I'm not comparing like a 2021 practice to a 2022 practice, and like where the bench line there, the benchmark is what I didn't like. I'm just simply saying I like the fact it feels like football. Like that's my frame of reference. Is that how you feel, or what does it feels like football mean to you?
It just feels like you're out there and everybody's playing football. And so nowhere is obviously it's never going to get to not since they never, but you can't expect. I think sometimes people's expectations are you go from where we were say a couple years ago to like Ohio State. There's a step-by-step process because we had a step-by-step and huge leap process to get where we're at, and that's there's right, wrong, or indifferent how we get there or how we got here, and then you got to work your way up. And what I mean by football is everybody's practicing, everybody's. You would like to think that, everybody's getting a lot of work, and especially in the spring, it's so important that that's how you improve and have some depth. And I mean, you can go back to the first game last year against Minnesota. I think in the first 2 series, I think like 19 guys played.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, so that means that they had in their this is where I think they have the confidence in that they can develop people, is that they've done it before, and they've done it here in my, estimation, a very short amount of time. You get hired, you try to change the culture, you try to get people implemented into your system. You got winter conditioning, which obviously seemed totally different, and then you go into spring, which was totally different, and boom, we're here on the road. And I call the Thursday night game the Minnesota Open because that's their, they play every year Thursday night on the road, and guys, seem to step up, and you had guys that normally
under past regimes would be on the milk carton and probably be on the way out in the transfer portal, show up and play big minutes. And so now you're able to see guys be more accustomed to, how to show up to practice, the language, the expectations, and knowing right from wrong. And then hopefully that filters down, kind of like what we were blessed to have when we came in as young pups. Obviously, you came in a year before me, to where you could be shown, told, and then also coached how to do it, and then let you go do it, reel you back in when you kind of, get out of line. And then the more times that you can have your peers kind of coach you, encourage you, and all those things I mentioned before, that's how you're able to, pay it forward. And you're not always feeling like you have to rebuild. You kind of reload because you know who's coming down the pipe.
Jay, you mentioned the just the added benefit of kind of knowing how you practice. Like, how much does that matter? Because I don't know that that's something people who haven't played think about that much, of just being familiar and comfortable with knowing how things are going to operate. How much easier is it to focus on actually getting better when that's not something you just have to figure out the mechanics of?
It's completely different. I mean, I guess, when we played in college, we didn't have to deal with it, but I dealt with it. I feel like, it seems like too much in the NFL where there's constant turnover in coaches and regimes. I feel like, especially with our team where you didn't anybody that was surefire established players. You had guys that were good players, but you needed more out of them, right? Mm-hmm. And still probably need some more out of some of those guys. The first year, I equate you're like in survival mode. You're kind of just tiptoeing around. Do I really want to answer the challenge? Do I want to, listen to another voice? Then do I want to listen to the people that are telling me that, dog, you're too good. You can go somewhere else and get yours. Or do I want to stay and be committed to something that's new, that there's no guarantee that there's going to be success, and believe in it? And then once you kind of, get through that 2-3 week of threshold, say, you know what, I'm gonna be in this. And then you start to see guys, their attitudes change. That's the first year, right? Trying to figure out where trying to get in where you fit in. Am I a starter? Am I a rotational player? I'm not starting, but will I get some reps, right? I'm playing well in practice. I'm going in sometimes with the ones, and I'm playing mostly in the twos in practice, but then am I going to get in the game? Am I going to be on the travel roster right off the rip, right? So there's some change there because you go from, the home roster to the travel roster, or to the second, to this year. You kind of know what's expected from the work. You kind of know what is expected from like the recruiting standpoint, and what potentially could be, your challenges as far as guys coming in. The weight room, Corey Campbell and all those guys, the expectations there. Then also you have a shot or a whole season worth of practices, off the field stuff, obviously game film, where you can get better. And then it's up to you to separate yourself, in a competition. So the second year should be, I wouldn't say easier, but less anxiety of showing up every day at practice. Because those first, correct me if I'm wrong, Damon. I remember being in the league, they're like with Greg Williams. Dude, them first 3 or 4 mini camps were like you didn't know what you were doing. You didn't know if you were going live goals.
Yeah, 100%.
You didn't know if you were going to be the Junction Boys or you were going to no pass, or they were just going to take it. Like one time I was telling somebody, like Greg Williams just spent the whole practice and telling us how crappy we were on defense. And we were just number 3. Mm-hmm. And so that's, and not saying that Matt Rule and those guys did it, but you're just dealing with a different type of mental aspect of it. And then once you kind of get into the system, and understand that what to be expected, you got to think for the last half, especially because I wasn't down there, especially that last year, but you got to think Matt Rule coming in, put a big emphasis on nutrition, holding you accountable. You got meals there, you got to eat. If you don't eat, you're a bad teammate. I'm holding you accountable. I'm not going to tell you, I'm going to do it. Then, big emphasis on recovery. If you're not doing it, you're a bad team. These are the things that, if you weren't accustomed to it or doing it on your own, and let's be honest, Damon, if you were in this, it would be adjustment for us because, we probably have more mental strength as, we say, hey, you know what, let's go kick it on a Thursday because we know we can answer the bell on a Friday, right? But if you're held accountable that, we got to hit a meal, we can't, say like in your case, say you don't, you can't go, get on the road too early to go to Omaha because you got team obligations. There's things that guys have to adjust to. In the second year, it's just a part of way of life. And then once you start to see the positive reinforcement and outcomes from it, then it just becomes something that you want to tell other people about, hopefully.
Let me ask you something, because you're very good at the relationship portion and emotional security, especially when it comes to when you can transition into thriving in any environment. I get the sense on the recruiting trail, a lot of this was firsthand. They care, and you're important, but at the end of the day, there's this security that they could take or leave you because they know what's best, and you should too. Just like at practice.
Yeah.
Just like at practice,
yeah.
where we can compete, and it's going to be physical, and we can go one-on-ones, and we may have to, move you out of the way or step over you if you're a little slow getting up. Practice will continue.
Right.
But I care about you, and you're important to me. Like, there are just these little, I can cuss you out, but you're still important to me. Like, all those things seem to have something in common, right? What is it?
Well, first of all, because it's not personal. And that's where you can really, and that's why I think as of right now, you don't see a lot of guys jumping in the portal, because I just was talking about this the other, as much as kids have changed, and I'll just deal with athletes, the regular, kids outside. I'm dealing with athletes because I think it's a different dynamic when you're dealing with athletes, high level athletes, high functioning athletes, or whatever you want to call them. As long as you keep it real and it's not personal, they will be okay with it and they will thrive in it. That will not change. But once it becomes personal and you're lying to them, and they can, it's like spider senses. When their BS meter starts to kind of go off, like fire alarms or whatever, then you lose all kind of credibility. And so I think that's it. And then you talk about the recruiting aspect of it. For this program, and then coming from the NFL, very confident in what they can do or what they envision themselves doing. They're very secure in themselves, and that's something that that when you talk to people, it's just who they are. So if they're very secure in what they're doing, obviously you're secure, obviously by contract and all that. But if you're secure in your business, then that's how you're going to recruit. And they know that right now it's a great time because of the plethora of athletes out there. They can giving everybody equal chances, as we can only go right now, to prove themselves, make a name for themselves, create a legacy, and come in and play. But you've got to earn it. You have to earn it. You can't roll in there anymore and say, you know what, man, it'd be just like, I'm just thinking about this. Just say, like, if I, my first year where I was starting and, splitting time with Jamel, and then going there the next year, sitting with Coach McBride, be like, man, if I don't go from playing 60% of the time, 80% of the time, I'm in the portal. That's not going to work. That's not going to work anymore. It might have worked in the past. It's not going to work anymore. They feel that they can build a roster and develop a roster. So if that starts to kind of get into the system of their program, they can jettison out of it and keep it moving. And that's just probably the biggest difference. Now, times have changed because of, being able to take advantage of some of the guys and I do feel like this. And I've said this plenty of times. I think the change when Mickey took over and breathed some new energy and life into them and some more structure and accountability made this transition into Matt Rule and staff a lot easier.
2,000%.
And just give them credit, and it is what it is. But I think that there was a good foundation set there. There wasn't a bad locker room. Guys they didn't know what they didn't know. They're open to realistic, clear, honest, hard work, accountability. And so this is what you're seeing right now. So it's great right now. And so these guys are – the tricky part about spring is, which, you'd like to see, is like tough guys and physically tough guys. And then who can deal with the success of spring. Because spring is right now, when we played, Damon, it was you better be ready to play, right?
Mm-hmm.
You better, it's a game. Now I think this is a celebration of spring ball. Here's what we got, kind of dog and pony show. Transition quick to game mode. UTEP has to be on your mind as soon as that clock strikes 0, because you have to start quick. You have to get better, and there's no time to sit on your your likes or whatever it is that kind of get these guys to lose a little bit of focus and not be hyper focused on winning the game and being the best player that you can be. Because even if you had a good spring, the competition is too thick. You've seen it, in person. In every position, most likely competition is too thick. And it's not necessarily who's going to start, say, Ty Robinson and Nash, right? They're most likely going to start. But if you don't think a guy like Riley Van Poppel and Jackson and those guys aren't like them on the shoulder.
Oh, yeah. I think that. I think that, Jay.
Right. Well, I mean, we know it, but I'm just saying. Sit back and chill. All I'm saying is this: if you sit back and chill, and then think like, yeah, I'm gonna take a couple weeks off. I'm not gonna really go. I'm gonna ease back into off-season training. Then that gap starts to lessen, and then when pressure starts to get there, then you be like, okay, now I got to start doing what I'm normally doing. And then I always say you reap the sins of your past, and that's not working. Continue to work and get to the point there where you want to be the best player you can be. And separate yourself. Spring is unique because me and you are competing for a position. I want you to do well, but I want to do better. Why? Because I worked for it.
Go.
I feel like when we get down and dirty, I got more in the tank. It's the staying power and separating yourself. And you have to have that. Remember we talked about that ego? Like, this is my position. It's for the betterment of the team, and I'm going to continue to show you. Not just one game, not just one practice, not just 1 week. I'm going to show you so there's no question. I used to always think I would not want anybody to get in their car or like after a game and be like, man, so it's just as good as them. They're like, no shit. I didn't want that. Just what we had to build, because we had to work our way up through it, right? We had to sit there and, have long lunches at the training table, wonder whether I want to go to Minneapolis, you want to go back to Omaha. And not come back. You know what I'm saying? So and those were real. Being on punt return, oh man, we're sitting up there, thinking about, man, wanting to drop kick Coach Bowl sometimes, but we had to do what we had to do.
We're talking with Jay Foreman, former Husker. Jay, so you kind of mentioned the mindset of guys going from, hey, I got a little playing time last year. I can't expect to get more playing time this year just because I'm a year older, right? Is that a mindset that you think Coach Rule recruits to guys that are wired that way? Or do you think they try and rewire the way guys think once they get here if they think they're the right fit?
Yeah, everybody has to, get, rewired. I think we got humbled. We call it, we got humbled. I think now you have to de-star them, right? And so say like you're a player that, say you're, there's a difference. And I had to learn this in the NFL and where you go from, being a backup and guy that say you go, at the end of the season, you go on that 6-game run. You're like, yeah, this is easy. You know what I'm saying? Hey, I should be in the Pro Bowl. Well, guess what? They got tape on you now. Now they're game planning specifically for you. They're trying to see how smart you are, not for 6 games, but for 16 games. And so you do have to rewire them. You have to constantly challenge them because you have to put them in a place mentally that physically that they can operate and not at the highest level in the highest pressure situation. And you got to be 100% honest with them. You got to tell somebody, like in my case, hey, dude, what you did is good. But let me tell you something. This player at this team did it. This is what he struggled with in the second year. You better get your mind right. Matter of fact, I'm going to be harder on you because I want the best for you so you don't stub your toe and have that quote-unquote sophomore jinx. And there was a couple guys that had to deal with that, right? Where you played some as a true freshman. Oh, man, that's great. Guess what? Now you got a new defensive coordinator, and they got tape on you. And so you just got to get to the point that where you're – and I don't want to say it's rewiring. I think it's always kind of like do it. It's like you're adding to the wire. You're adding to the mental. You're taking it up. You're just kind of constantly tweaking it. I would say tweaking versus rewiring. Rewiring, I think, is like you got somebody that thinks they, had, we've seen it, right? We're a couple running backs or running back. I won't say the game because then I would be diming them out. Played a night game. A couple guys, had some big games. Next thing you know, they act like they ain't got to practice.
What's funny?
That's rewiring.
I said this a couple weeks ago, and I think what you're talking about is a perfect example. We were talking about the transfer portal and how it may or may not be busy. And I said, hey, look, some of these guys are going to take a look around and think there's not enough space between us and we're close to the same age. So I may just bounce because if I'm a guy that played last year, and let's say, let's use your number, 60%. Not only is there tape on me and the standard has been set for me, I have to be equal to or greater than my development from the previous year than the guy coming in or the younger guy that's evolving as well, right? So if I'm a guy that Doss is a good example because he played early, right? Or Lloyd or Malachi Coleman. See, they'll have to improve that much more because of guys like Bell or Barney or any of these other guys that are improving exponentially given to where they came in too, right? Like it never stops. Next year, you'll have 2 years of tape. You better be that much better than the guy below you that is getting that much better because they're going to want to see reps, right? Like that's what happens. That's what happens when you build depth.
When you build depth, but I also will say this: as long as you're continuing to improve and not getting worse or resting on your laurels, you will be secure in your spot. Because here's why. Here's what coaches like, and you know this. You're a coach. You like to know that when them 11 dudes run out there in defense or this particular player or position, you know what you're going to get.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you find, and here's a example for me. I had, started as a freshman at outside linebacker, was a co-starter at middle linebacker, really probably, and I was the backup, right?
Mm-hmm.
I was making plays, and I used to try to, it was my sophomore year. In my junior year, I felt like I had a good year, maybe kind of going to the pros. I sat down with Coach McBride, and he said, and he's like you could think like, okay, there's a possibility I was going to, I was like, all right, I've been here 4 years, 3-year starter, 2 to 3 national championships, felt like I could run a 40 and do all that. Then you can go, why not just, tap out and go to the pros? He said, you know what? I want to see you be more physical at the point of attack, and be more commanding in the passing game and eliminate the middle of the field.
Mm.
And that came from somewhere else, right? So if that's not something,
he probably heard that on a humbug, maybe feeling things out for you.
Yeah. Right. But let me tell you something. Like that conversation. Get in the car, you go home, but then you realize, you know what? All right, I'm going to show you. And then you had, like, I think Ben View by Carlos Polk coming up the pipe or whatever. Then so that spring was a completely different challenge. And then what did I try to improve? So every day that I got there to practice session, you know what I mean? That's what I'm thinking about. And then it became a habit. So the improvement ideally showed wasn't like a height, weight, speed thing or a playmaking thing, because I could make plays, right? You're going to make the plays. You know what I mean? You're going to make the plays, and then you got to make a play that normally you wouldn't make. But it was getting that much better that gave him security, and then you didn't have to rush somebody in there. And so the coaches also have to make sure you don't get too excited by the new toy, because longevity and being able to answer the bell and been through some wars, there's something that be said there. So it's a tricky situation. I'm always for players. If you're playing 60% of the time, and say you graded out at like a 74% on a PFF or whatever. Well, I could take that same 60% and get it to 84, and I'm going to bigger places than even if I played even if I played 70% of the snap and kept the same grade. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
My efficiency can go off the roof. Having to sit there and say, you know what, I need to be it's like being an efficient scorer versus a volume scorer. What do you want to be? You want to shoot 30 shots and get 30 points, or do you want to shoot 16 shots and get 32 points?
That's our guy, Jay Foreman, former Husker. Jay, great stuff. We appreciate it. We'll talk to you again soon.
Thanks, Jay.
All right, man. See you.
We'll be back with more Hurrdat Sports Radio.
back. Oh, and down goes Damon Haney.
He may be a one-trick pony, but that trick is enough.
Happening as frequently as it needs to happen.
Oh, and he's got it locked again. And down for a second time. It's Damon Haney. Straight. Whoa. Oh! Will the third time be the charm? 4, 5, 6.
How back?
We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
We're back here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. We're live on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. Don't forget KFOR in Lincoln for this third hour, as always. I'm Ravi Lulla, DB here with me. We are on the Pillar Exterior stage, and I got to remind you, you've got until May 12th to get out to Lauritsen Gardens for the Brick Live Brickosaurs exhibit. Super cool deal. DB and I went out there and checked it all out. I still don't know if I believe the brick count. They say 1.5 million bricks for all the exhibits. I would have guessed 1.5 million bricks for the T-Rex alone. But hey, they probably count. They're probably a little better at math than I am, so I'll take their word for it. But it is a super cool deal. Make sure you get to Lauritsen Gardens before May 12th, before this exhibit goes extinct. It's going to be dynamite.
I bet you that count is probably pretty spot on, because a lot of those things that they build, and I know this because my nephew is totally in the Lego, but a lot of that kind of stuff right now that they build they use computer programs to do it, and it just gives you the brick count. So I'm sure that that's probably a pretty legit number.
Man, that sounds So I think more to Ravi's point, it seems like a really low number for as big as some of those.
Some of those are they pretty big? I mean, I haven't been out there. I don't know. I haven't seen it, but
Asian Wyatt's kids were like mounting a velociraptor.
Oh wow!
Which I can't say
if they
don't
can
do
support like Here
Don't do
I was feeling bad that you weren't supposed to touch, and she's like got a saddle and a bridle on that thing. I was just like,
don't do that. Don't ride the dinosaur.
And it's relatively small, like 200-some thousand for one
for the big
one.
I think the T-Rex was maybe 300, but it was way low for me, I thought. But make sure you get to lawrenceandgardens.org to get your tickets to this great Brick Live Brickosaurs exhibit. Speaking, no, I don't have a transition there to get to Dion, but I'm just
you could say, speaking of shooting bricks, throwing bricks.
That's kind of what I was gonna go, because he kind of missed the mark on this one in his last press conference.
Is that what it was?
Yeah, I think so. Because there's reporters there, so they were asking him questions.
Okay.
Let me just give you the little, because it happened, I think, Friday after we were off the air. Otherwise, I would have yelled about it then. But they were the Colorado programs had quite a bit of portal activity in the exiting direction in the since it opened last week, right? I think,
and I think it was how they handled one that kind of led to the defensive and responding to.
Yeah, so
when you get a 5-star guy that hits the portal and he's vilified by the fan base, and you see the online exchange.
Yeah,
it got everybody's attention.
Yeah, so a 5-star guy, but that guy can't play. He's not a starter apparently from Dion's perspective. So here's the exchange, okay? This is how I know that Dion is. I mean, I was pretty sure he was full of crap anyway. But when you start getting into this, this nonsense that he does, you'll see what I'm talking about. He goes, the question started was basically if Dion was concerned about the number of guys, because I mean they're pushing 20 in just a few days.
Mm-hmm.
Guys that
since Monday.
Guys that Dion recruited, by the way. Mm-hmm. These aren't old guys. These are guys that Dion recruited, right? So just keep that in mind as we go through this little answer here. He goes, hey, the reporter goes, hey, you guys concerned about the number of guys in the portal? And Dion says, I wish you guys would pay attention. Who are we losing? The reporter says, hey, potential starters. Dion goes, you haven't been watching practice, huh? Reporter goes, we're not allowed to. Dion says, amen, which not an answer, by the way. He knows they're not allowed to watch practice.
So it's an easy way to check a guy because, well, how would you know you can't see?
Yeah.
Yeah, I get it.
It's nonsense, right? He goes, well, I can't watch practice. He goes, amen. And then he goes on this diatribe about we good. I trust the recruiting team, which apparently the recruiting team, by the way, is Shador and Shiloh telling guys to slide in his DMs. By the way, that's the crack recruiting team we're working on here. Okay. And he goes, hey, please have some faith in me. Because that 1-8 record in the Pac-12 is like, hey, let's have faith, baby. All these guys that you recruited, by the way, hopping in the portal, doesn't really scream, let's have a lot of faith in Dion. But okay, he asked him to have a little faith in me. All right, whatever. He goes, what happens with the portal? You guys need to know a lot of people are fighting for backups. When a guy is a starter and he transfers, you got to think about that. Is he really a starter? I don't know how many starters have really transferred around the country. I think we've got some coming in, but I don't think we're losing those types of players. So apparently, in the transfer portal, only non-starters leave everywhere else, including Colorado, but somehow Colorado's bringing in starters.
That's what that answer means to me.
Help me understand how that works, right? Because the starters aren't leaving anywhere else.
The only thing that he could possibly be saying is, hey, the guys that we get, my talent guys, we're not going to get those guys unless they can start.
But aren't the guys that are leaving guys that they went out and got?
Yeah. Yeah.
That kind of makes the whole argument fall apart there, doesn't it?
So and the weird thing is I'm 99.999999% sure that I know guys that have been approached that came from Shiloh and Shador. So maybe if you're tampering or you're soliciting your services or opportunities, they're high-end guys now, right? They're not.
But I thought starters didn't enter the portal. That's what he just told me.
Only if they actively recruit them. That's the part he's not telling you. Hey, we're going to get starters.
Okay, but
but nobody else is voluntarily leaving as a potential starter,
except for all the guys that he thought were starters when he recruited them last time around.
Yeah, there's that.
So he's just running around in circles here.
That's the part he's not telling you.
Yeah, the part he's not telling you is, well, he thought all the guys that are leaving were starters at one point.
I can't. So that's the part that. Well, there's two things that are. I said this last week. You know, how would you feel as a staff if it's basically, hey, get a hold of my sons? That would be off-putting. The other thing is why go into this? You have this image that you portray, right? And there are lots of attributes that come with witnessing. By witnessing, I just mean when you profess to be a Christian, you're trying to win people to the kingdom. You're basically witnessing. There are these attributes that come across as that seem to be anti-effective witnessing, where you belittle, you demean, you openly compare and contrast without any what I call like biblical comparisons. They come across as very judgy. I don't know how that flies, because leave it to fans or people that sometimes we excuse their behavior because they don't know any better when they tear down somebody that's not theirs. Fans will do that all the time. We didn't want them.
But what's he doing?
That's the part that's a struggle. Like,
as soon as they stop being his guys,
then you go to tearing them down. If you're for edification of student athletes,
if you're in it for the kids,
just take the high road.
What did I say last week?
Just take the high road.
What did I say?
And
last
I don't
week?
think that's too hard.
It's not.
He's
in his 50s. He's in his 50s. He's an adult. He should be able to do it.
This
is not his first rodeo.
Comes across as odd.
It comes across as he's not a good dude. I'm like, listen, every time he opens his mouth, he gives me more evidence that he's not a good dude.
Sometimes too,
I'm a little surprised.
I'm not at all.
No, that at the outward demeaning of a
that's what I've been saying the whole time
of a person's value.
That's what I've been saying the whole time, though, because that's how I felt about the exit interviews in last spring. That's how I felt about the professor video. That's how I felt about all these things. Yes, some of these conversations are conversations that need to be had. But if you care about a kid, you're not doing it in front of a camera. If you care about somebody's well-being in one of the most vulnerable times in their life, when you're saying, hey, I don't think you can play here, that's not a conversation you have for social media. That's a bad dude thing to do. And then he keeps doing it.
Yeah.
I'm not surprised at all. This is on brand for my guy.
Sometimes when you have those, I don't know, those thoughts or whatever, that can come off as being forced too with the people on down the line. So think about that.
I'm just saying these aren't somebody else's recruits.
There is.
These are his guys.
Yeah.
And he was building them up. He was sure letting us know how good his Louis was when they were coming in. Turns out he might have bought some knockoffs. I don't know. It's hard to say. We got Steve Muehlhausen coming up next.
We will be back. will be back. Hurrdat Sports Radio. We will be back. We will be back. Welcome to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
Out back. Oh, Damon Haney! He may be a one-trick pony, but that trick is enough.
Happening as frequently as it needs to happen.
Oh, he's got it locked again, and down for a second time. It's Damon Haney. Straight. Whoa. Oh! For the third time in the charm. 4, 5, 6.
Wrapping up the show here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities, KFOR in Lincoln. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla here on the Pillar Exterior stage. You can catch us on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube as well. We are efforting Stephen Muehlhausen to talk a little boxing. Had a big fight this weekend between Haney and Garcia. We talked about it a little bit earlier in the open, but the betting on that was super strange.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the officiating on that was super strange. What was not super strange was Garcia kind of just giving him the business.
Did you see? So Errol Spence was there, and there were a lot of the guys there were there, and somebody's like, "Hey, Errol, what'd you think of the fight?" And he's like, "Well, I'm glad he won." He showed the ticket. I was like, that'd have been a heck of a payday.
If he had done that as an NBA player, he'd be banned.
Yeah, see, and boxing
is famous for.
Yeah, you can do that. I mean,
yeah,
fudge. Bernard Hopkins is. I remember one time
he used to bet on himself, right?
Yeah, and he put it on his back.
Yeah,
was that during Trinidad? I think it was when he fought Tito.
Yeah,
and Mayweather notoriously has done it. I don't know how many times where he's like bet on himself in a fight, but that was giving me some weird vibes all the way up until that thing. It was an unbelievable night.
I'm just glad that Errol Spence still has his wits enough about him to be able to go to things like this.
So he doesn't come off like that.
Yeah.
But I am glad that he appears to be a lot more functional. Like his speech is a little better.
Yeah.
It hasn't quite been the same since the accident anyway.
Yeah.
But he appeared to be very
well. And our guy Terrence Crawford is set to fight.
Yeah.
In August.
Yeah, it's going to be in California.
Yeah, LA
at 54.
Yeah.
So he's
moving on up to super welter.
Yeah, he and Boots have kind of gone back and forth. Ennis.
Yeah.
About the fight, non-fight, which has made social media, but yeah, it's going to be a good year. You got Fury and Usyk coming
which
up
is
too,
a big one.
It's a big one.
Yeah. Both, I mean, figuratively and literally with the big boys.
You don't get heavyweights of that magnitude.
No, not very often.
A ton.
Because it's been 4 years since Wilder Fury 2.
Yeah. Is that 4? Yeah.
3. It's minimum 3.
Yeah.
It's minimum 3. And so, I mean, that's
to this day.
To this day. That's the last big heavyweight fight that there's been that I can remember at least.
We have our guy here, Stephen Hill. Now.
All right, let's get him.
Let's get to Stephen Muehlhausen. Stephen, how are you this morning? Stephen, you there?
I will try to punch him up. These new systems.
There he is.
Stephen, good morning. How are you?
I am amazing. How are you guys?
We're good. We're good. I apologize for our delay, so we'll get right to it. Did you take the bait, or do you think, yep, Garcia is pretty wild. He's just a better fighter than we gave him credit for. I don't all of a sudden think he wasn't losing his mind momentarily. He just may be a better fighter than Haney gave him credit for.
I'll start with that latter part. 100% Devin Haney did underestimate him. Because you look at what Devin has done in the last couple of years. Look at what he went to Australia twice. Became the undisputed lightweight champion. You go and beat one of the all-time greats in Vasily Lomachenko. A fight, very close fight, but at the end of the day, Devin got it done. And I thought Devin won those championship rounds to win that fight. And look at what he did to Regis Prograis. Debut at 140, shutout, one of the most dominant performances we had seen in a very long time in a high-caliber championship fight. So you can make the case, if I'm Devin, yeah, I can smoke this guy. But the thing of the matter is, they fought 6 times beforehand in the amateurs. And to me, that does still hold a lot of stock. If there's a guy that's going to know Devin Haney, it is going to be Ryan Garcia. Now, like you guys said, this was a very unique build-up. And I had remembered when I was at the Zone and I was telling people, they were kind of getting freaked out. And I'm like, relax. I've been around Ryan a lot when I was with the Zone, and we spent a lot of time together before fights. And I know how he is, and I'm like, he's doing a troll job here. But even he got me. There was a point where I'm like, okay, this has gone too far. But his team kept telling me, I kept reaching out, and they're like, no, Steve, he's trolling. I'm like, I'm not buying it. Then you had what happened at the weigh-in, and I'm like, this fight should be off. I put it on social media. His team's messaging me like, Steve, like,
well, the kidnapping missing thing and kids being exploited was, I bought that more than I bought him actually having a beer every day.
He wasn't having a beer at the weigh-in.
Yeah.
Everyone was like, oh, it was beer. I'm like, literally, he went and said it was like something, and I was like, it was apple juice.
Yeah. Wow.
And I'm like, I even talked to people, they were literally on stage with him. They're like, he didn't even smell like beer. He literally was drinking apple juice. And I'm like, okay, that makes sense. But he has a lot of, I was even really worried about him. But I knew, like, when he came to the arena, you could see him walking in. You see him in the locker room. People are giving him a hard time about the music. But he's in a different mental place than a lot of people want to admit. And I thought for half the fight, if he establishes anything, if he can land the left hook, if he can land the right hand in the first half of the fight, make Devin think, I thought we had a fight. He did. I didn't think it would be 45 seconds in, and but you look at the performance; it was an uneven performance. It wasn't the Ryan Garcia we saw against Oscar Duarte. It wasn't the Ryan Garcia we saw even when he got knocked down against Luke Campbell to beat Luke Campbell. It was reminding me of the Gervonta Davis fight when he rocked Gervonta early in the fight. And I'm like, let's see what happens when the fight gets in the later stages. And Devin had moments, but that left hook changed the whole complexion of the fight in the 7th round. And then even Ryan knocked it down with the right hand. I think it was either the 9th or the 10th when he scored the other knockdown with the right hand. I think it was the 10th. But a really good performance by Ryan Garcia. He showed the world he belongs. He showed the world he is a top-notch fighter. But he's a flawed. He's like every other human being. He has issues. But it's just on a really, really big stage. And a lot of that he's put on himself, no doubt about it. But you can't take away from what he did inside the ring. And I think a lot of people are still looking at all the outside stuff. Let's focus on, for right now, what he did inside the ring.
Well, let's talk about the outside stuff for a second, because in your opinion, is that why Haney was such a dramatic favorite going into this fight? I think it dipped right before the fight, but it was minus 800-900 for pretty much that whole lead. Is that just because of all the other stuff, or was there boxing reasons people made Haney that much of a favorite?
I talked to people that bet, and it's a very good question, because a lot of people hadn't even thought of that aspect. Because you look at how high the odds were. The odds did go up when this stuff was going on during the build-up and even during fight week. And I talked to people at BetMGM, and they said that to me. Like, the odds, people kept putting money on Devin because they really didn't think they were looking at all the antics of Ryan on social media, the videos he's putting out, and especially what happened during fight week. But then and I said, and then also people were afraid the fight wasn't going to happen.
Yeah.
There was a lot of trepidation. And even I talked to someone yesterday who helps handle that side at the Barclays Center. And they had a lot of trepidation. They were getting worried because ticket sales really weren't going that hot. And they were afraid that Ryan wasn't going to make the fight. And once Ryan got there, they sold over 14,000 tickets. They're looking at I was told about a $10 million gate. So it's a healthy gate at a big venue in New York, the biggest media market in the United States. But the odds did go down once we knew there was going to be a fight. They went down more than I thought. I was actually a little surprised going into the ring. I saw some places said Devin at a minus 600. I think ESPN had it, I think it was around 750, 800. They had went down from minus 900. So there were some places that were worried about the antics during fight week, during the build-up. But once it got to the fight, you could see the odds started to plummet a little bit. But I didn't think Ryan hit it. I thought Ryan had a chance because it's boxing. You always have a puncher's chance. But Devin was the better fighter. If you look at all-around skill set, Garcia, yes, he had the speed. He had the power. But you thought Haney, he had the boxing IQ. And if you watch the fight, Ryan Garcia did. Yes, he already hit his two attributes. But he showed he has a better fight IQ than people want to give him credit for. And that credit also goes to Derek James. Derek James came up with a really good game plan to beat Devin Haney. Give Ryan credit. Of course, he's implementing it. But give Derek James his flowers.
Yeah, because he was equally as poor with Spence versus Crawford. Let me end on this here, Steven, just because were you surprised that a quality referee had so much trouble, like as appeared to the naked eye as I did?
That was
shaky at best.
I was very surprised. No, shaky, you're being very if we're going to be, and I don't want to, I hate blasting this.
I know, right?
The job of the referee is supposed to just to look out for fighter safety, make sure he doesn't get egregious in there, do breaks if they're in the clinch, break at a certain point, no dirty boxing, no hits behind the head, all the illegal shots. That's your job.
Yeah.
That fight should have been over in the 7th.
100%.
Stephen Muehlhausen, we
It
appreciate
really-
it.
100%.
I'm sure
All right.
I'm sure we'll catch up again soon.
Thanks, Stephen.
Just stay here. Bye, guys. Talk soon.
That's Hurrdat Sports Radio. We'll be back tomorrow.
That's it. Thanks, guys. Thank you, Kobe.